Missing election.
Missing slightly to the side. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, elected members, staff, members of the gallery, welcome to the council meeting for Tuesday, the 23rd of March, here in Preindi. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We also recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. Also read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. Now, on leave we have nil, but we do have a couple of apologies. Councillor Nguyen and Councillor Groot, who may be here a bit later, and Councillor Harris is absolutely here. Are there any other apologies? No, that's it. Declaration by members of a conflict of interest with any item tonight. I'll just note that item 10.9, which is related to the Collinswood Shopping Centre precinct upgrade, has been withdrawn by the CEO, so we won't be dealing with that matter tonight. Are there any conflicts of interest anyone would like to know with any of the other items? Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I haven't got my anything in front of me to work out the number there. Oh, so I don't know whether my motion on notice would be something, given that I've put it forward, that I would then need to declare a conflict of interest on.
No. That would make it very difficult to have a motion on notice. If you lived on that corner that you've raised an issue about, yes, but it's not. You don't live anywhere near it.
Ask my wife and she thinks like that, but yeah.
No. All right, you're not after a wrecking sport issue, you're after a traffic management issue. So I think that's okay. CEO, you I think that's fine. Yeah. Chair. We'll move on then to confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of council for Tuesday the 23rd of February. Somebody happy to move that they be noted as confirmed as a true record? Councillor Barnett, we should speak to it.
No.
Deputy Mayor,
Nothing.
a seconder.
Nothing.
Any further debate? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. Public question time is our next item. We have a question on notice that's been provided to us, and I'll now read that out. It has been, sorry, just to preface that, we have a set amount of time for those who haven't been to a council meeting before for the public to ask questions. Members of the gallery can ask questions during this section. We also allow people to provide them to us in advance, which has the benefit of getting an answer from the staff in advance, which I'll read in a second. We've got 15 minutes and a maximum of 3 minutes per question, just so there are some quite strict rules around how this section gets used. So the first question, I'll read it out to you. It has been 3 years since, from Ryan Harrison via our online form, who I believe lives along Devonport Terrace. It's been 3 years since I've complained and brought to attention the illegal parking and safety issues on Devonport Terrace, Allen Street and Elizabeth Street, yet still nothing has been done. My question is, why does the council continue to promise and mislead myself and other residents in this area in fixing the issue, then ignore it? First, I was told an education period was needed. 3 years, no fines I've ever seen. Then I was told it's part of the rail corridor and full revitalisation. Seen no plans lodged for this, and knowing government, this means it's at least a further 1 to 2 years away. I'd like council to respond in person at a meeting and allow me time to raise these and related questions to them. Can I just check, is Mr. Harrison in the gallery tonight? No, that's okay, because I thought there might be a further question after this response I've received from the staff, in particular the manager of infrastructure and assets. The answer is, these roads are visited by council general inspectors in relation to both CRM requests and general parking review on a regular basis, currently twice weekly. It is noted that Devonport Terrace and Allen Street are classified as narrow streets where cars cannot park legally across from each other. They must have a 3 metre separation. Elizabeth Street is wide enough for parking on both sides while allowing safe vehicle movements. The Mayor has previously corresponded with Mr Harrison with the suggestion that he initiate a petition from residents along Allen Street to gauge what residents want to do in the street related to parking matters. Item 10.7 on tonight's council agenda includes a recommendation for council to endorse the Devonport Terrace Streetscape draft concept plan, which has been subject to significant community consultation, and works are expected to commence in the coming months. So that's the official answer provided by the staff. I now ask, are there any further questions from members of the gallery for tonight? All right, that being the case, we'll move on from public question time to the next agenda item, which is a petition regarding the barking dog in Harrington Street prospect. And that item, let your members, the recommendation is on page 2. You've received a copy of the petition, I hope, by a separate circular. Yep. Does somebody wish to move the recommendation on page 2? Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
And to say that I think any of us who have had a barking dog issue can appreciate how people feel about this. There are various things that people can take, you know, the Dog and Cat Management Board and all the rest of it, but it depends upon the actual dog owner or whoever's in charge of the dog or dogs to follow up with those. So it is a very vexed issue, but I do hope that we're able as a council to somehow, or through our staff in charge of this, to facilitate something that will assist.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor.
Support Councillor Barnett's statement. This seems to fall in the category of one of those issues that we've got a few of at play at the moment, whereby they seem to go round and round in circles, and we don't really seems to be out of our power to be able to resolve them, to close them off, and the team do what they can to you know, enforce the full letter of what is in our control. But we do have a number of situations where there are things where we almost end up saying, well, we've done all we can, there's nothing else we can do about it, which, you know, in some ways it's not our fault, but it reflects on us because people's expectations are that we deal with things at that local level. So I'm not really suggesting that we do anything differently except for keep trying to resolve them where we can, but just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Further debate? Councillor De Backer.
I've got a question as well about the noise net thing, because I guess when it comes to these kind of things, it's definitions and legal, I guess, what the council can and can't do. So I'm just confused with the expression in the report, page 3. It talks about nuisance barking. Now I know nuisance under the EPA is an expression, and I suppose barking can be. Is there an actual definition for nuisance barking?
Thanks. CEO.
Yeah, through your chair to the acting director.
Through the mayor. So the technical definition of nuisance barking is caused when a dog creates a noise by barking or otherwise which persistently occurs or continues to such a degree or extent that it unreasonably interferes with the peace, comfort or convenience of a person. So that is the definition we're trying to work within when we're trying to fix this solution.
Okay, thank you.
So just back to that. So we're saying that the noise net thing didn't meet the definition, but going by the petition, it would meet the definition. So I'm just trying to be clear that we're clear what that definition is. It takes me wrong.
Thank you. Further debate? Councillor Pearce.
Reading the report, obviously the noise device has provided evidence that's not conclusive. But just want to make a comment that notwithstanding the legal constraints that staff adhere to me, it often appears that we err in favour of the complainee. That's just a comment.
Complainee meaning?
The person we're complaining against, not the complainant. That's just an observation.
Thank you. A comment, not a question.
Not a question.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? That being the case, councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, I did find that there seemed to be some conflicting from the report matters, but and this has gone on for some time. I just know, and even from personal experience and others, that during the COVID shutdown, it was very evident that a lot of people were at home more than what they would be during the day or not, all day, maybe. I didn't declare a conflict of interest, but I'm sure I heard that barking dog in Harrington Street. But nevertheless, I think we just have to try and do, as our council officers, to follow what is the usual recommended practices with these. But I'll say it is, I've used this term before and others have, it is a wicked problem, because if you don't have a dog owner or somebody who's in charge of the dog or not aware of the issue that their dog is causing, that is mostly the problem. And I don't know if the Dog and Cat Management Board can have another look at this. So that's just perhaps something that we might perhaps write to them and say, are there any other things that they might suggest, or other practices around what somewhere that might assist, because it is a problem.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. I'm not sure what members of the gallery are here for tonight, but once we finish with that matter tonight, we won't be discussing that item any further. So if you're here for the Harrington Street petition, we thank you for your attendance tonight, and note that there won't be any further discussion on that. Councillor Rick.
I know there are at least a couple in the gallery that are here for, I was going to raise item 10.4, the Commonwealth Local Area Traffic Management Trial. I don't know if everyone's here for that, but I know there are at least two that I'm aware of.
Yes, we've got a couple of deputies here tonight. We've got people here for item 10.4. We've got a CEO here for item 10.2. We've got someone in the gallery regarding item 10.6. So we've got a lot of excitement in the gallery tonight, and we'll move through it as expeditiously as we can. But thank you for that heads up. Next item on the agenda are the deputations. So the first deputation is Mr. David Rocker. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Rocker, and take this chair. You can stand if you wish, and you have 5 minutes to talk to us. And just for the purposes of the minutes, could you state your name and address?
Sure. David Rocker, 3/354 Regency Road, Prospect. Thank you for taking the time this evening. Just as it says on there, obviously Irish Harp Reserve. I'm just speaking to you today. I had an email from Nina, so I kind of feel like it's going ahead a little bit on that landscaping and architecting. So I think there's a bit of movement happening. So I appreciate that happening, and thank you very much for that. But I guess the main purpose of all this is just safety and maintenance of the park, I think, is the main issue that we have here. I'm not sure if many of you know Irish Harp Lane or walk through Irish Harp Lane behind Prospect Kindy. Yeah. I feel I used to go to that kindy when I was some 35 years old. I used to go to that kindy, and I feel like it probably hasn't been touched in a good 30 years, realistically. And I understand it's on the North Ward and it hasn't got much attention and it doesn't need much attention. And I feel like I'm the only one that's talking about it. But now we moved there and we live there and quite happy with the area. We really want to get a lot of issues fixed as far as safety, lighting, the alleyways as well that connect to the park are very, we'll use the word dodgy and unsafe. And I speak for everybody. I've tried to get people's opinions on this, but everyone seems to be shy or too scared to bring up anything. But there's been a lot of break-ins. 2 years ago, we had our back fence kicked down. I think that, the old saying, but I feel like we are getting somewhere with this now, moving to landscaping and architecture, all that sort of thing. So, but the main key, like, we're not after a big fandangle playground. We get it. We understand where in Prospect it is. You know what I mean? For us, like, we don't even have grass. We do in some areas, but a lot of sections, especially up front with where the playground is, there's a little jungle gym, I guess you could call it, like a little house thing. It's like right next to our back fence, and then like overlooks our house and yard. And we get a lot of activity there, which is fine during the day. Nighttime, we get a lot of negative activity, and for late at the moment, we have seem to be getting a Sudanese gang that seems to be hanging out there at the moment, and the police are on it. They have been very good, but there's fights, there's drugs, you name it, it happens in that park after dark, and it's just not safe. And we appreciate the light you put in, it's fantastic, but that only light works in summer when the sun is out. If that makes sense. So in winter, when we're overcast, some days it powers up enough charge, but then it goes off at night. So that's probably the only, but we appreciate it does help and it does deter a lot of people because it's a sensor light. You walk up to it, bang, it goes on, people get scared, they walk off. What's going on here? So the sensor light, when it works, it's fantastic. But the main issue is, like I said, is at night time, just manicuring the park, moving the playground. I'm pretty sure the playground's out of date and it's old anyway. A lot of you are aware, as I can see a few nods. There's honestly nothing really much else to say on that because I feel like it's going to start getting fixed. The landscaping is going to go ahead. But the main core elements for me is lighting. Those alleyways are just not good. Honestly, it's a matter of time before something. And recently there's a guy squatting in the house that's empty from the corner of the alleyway, and there's a whole kerfuffle with police at the moment and stuff going on there. He's now gone. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear, I guess. So,
Okay.
yeah.
If you could just hang on a bit, there might be some questions.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
elected members. So
100%.
does anybody have a question?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, for letting us know the issues. Question for you, have you previously raised the lighting issues to council administration and what's the response been like?
I have someone was supposedly coming to have a look at it. Someone did have a look at it, but apparently the person that can fix it doesn't live in SA. I don't know if that's true. Like it's a Queensland thing or something, and then it's solar, and nobody knew how to adjust it. But now that it's summer, no issues. So it's got plenty of sun. So moving forward to that, yeah, that's so far so good. But if it's overcast, it'll come on and probably cut out at like 10 o'clock at night, and then that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thanks very much. As a previous West Ward, Highbury Ward, as it was known then, now North Ward.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think this is an incremental thing, you know, that, so I'm only to ask a question.
Yes.
So I have to get to it. So what would be your preference, like if there was two top things that you would like, if it's in the power of council to do? So,
Yeah, 100%. We would really appreciate, and I'm not, well, the person that used to live next door is now gone. They've moved. But in front of our back fence area there, we just appreciate if there was no play equipment and if it was moved a little bit further on into the park. It is a big area. Lighting is probably the big thing. There is no light besides that one, which is right in our backyard, which is I prefer it there because it deters a lot of people. So I feel good there. But throughout the alleyways, there's no lights in those alleyways. There is a light, but I think the light is like dimly lit. And like I said, at the moment, we're having a gang of Sudanese, things like 8 or 10 of them that are hanging out. It's just causing trouble. So, but the cops are on it.
Councillor Pearce.
Yeah, David, you mentioned you've spoken to Nina.
Yes.
I do know, and I think I've spoken to you, that there should be a consultation coming out for.
Yes.
Can I ask the question when that consultation is happening, or has it happened? Obviously not.
Not yet.
So
I just got touch
can I
base
ask-
yesterday.
Okay, so no consultation yet.
Not yet. No.
Can I ask to the director when, or acting director?
Technically not, but I'm assured next week, which is an answer that I didn't give you, but you know, no. Questions only for the deputy in this stage.
The answer is no consultation yet.
Not yet. No.
yet.
Okay.
But I was told Friday letters should be rolling out in our letterbox.
Okay.
And then on to like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within the next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry, the deputy has the privilege. If you wish to ask a question, that's the public question time, or you have to register for deputation. Sorry about that. In terms of the, David, question from me, in terms of the safety issues, over the last 2 or 3 years, how many police reports would you have registered about activity back there?
A good dozen, and I've actually been in contact with the police. And I was gonna it's still in process. I've actually requested to have all those reports and the actions they have taken to be sent to me, but that's not as easy as it sounds apparently. So there's a whole legal process behind that. And there's this, apparently it's still a good month away before they actually provide that to me. So I did contact them today, went down to Norwood Police Station because it was just easier. And I asked, what's happening, and they can't give me an answer to when those reports do come from day dot when we got broken into 2 years ago. From that moment, I am waiting for it, but there's a good dozen. Last week we made a phone call on I can't remember when it was a Friday night, and it's just at the moment it's the Sudanese are graffitiing everything, and I get it, it's a park, you're allowed to hang out, but it gets very annoying, very loud, and they break into they're drinking, and then it just gets out of hand. But the cops are on it, they get it, so that comes and goes.
So you think it'd help our staff to see those police reports as well, to understand the sorts of issues?
Yeah, definitely. I just don't know when I'm going to get them. So I requested it last month, and it's just a whole legal matter of, I thought it was
Okay.
split print, but no, it's not.
That
So
would be
yeah,
cool.
I'm not sure when I'm going to see that report. So.
Any further questions for the deputy from elected members?
Oh.
Councillor Dacker?
Thank you for telling us about these issues, and
Yep.
I mean, some of them we sort of know, but certain things like the light being fixed, that's something that we can get
thank you.
onto. Certainly those issues about, I guess, antisocial behaviour might be the thing. There's certainly been other areas around the city that we've looked at with
You have a
question. I'm
question?
getting to the question. Antisocial behaviour. Has there been any other suggestions from the administration of the kind of things that we should be resourcing, funding to dissuade?
Yeah, when you say funding, like how
So
to
in budgets, like what? So lighting is one thing. Are there any other things that administration has suggested?
not necessarily. I think like there was like irrigation needs to be done because there's no like water that so there's no point having grass in areas because there's no, it just doesn't get watered till it dies. You guys have needle boxes. There's only one. I definitely recommend there's more multiple points, and dog stations for bags.
Okay.
That makes sense. That's not really high on my list,
No,
but
good feedback.
there needs to be a lot more dog on it, maybe on the entrances or something, because it's only one again, pretty sure. Yeah, so 2 actually, sorry. And being Prospect Kindy as well, you get a lot of, they're obviously they're periods of times. The Kindy's been broken into multiple times over Christmas, but they hire security at night in holidays just to monitor their backyard, their Kindy. So but they won't. They don't want to help me come here, so they don't want to speak about it. So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for
to
your
us today
time.
and
I
talking
really
to us.
appreciate it. Yeah.
We appreciate you coming here. So thank you very much. If you could resume your seat in the gallery.
Yep. Beautiful.
We'll now, sorry, and just as per my line before, Mr. Rocker, we don't have anything on the agenda tonight about that item. So if you wish to stay for the balance of the council meeting, for any part of it, you're more than welcome. But if you
No,
wish
we'll
to-
probably.
if you go home, that's
Yeah, thank you.
we
But I
understand.
appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much.
Now call forward Mr. Emmanuel Pichas. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but I'll give you an opportunity to teach us how it should be pronounced. In just a moment, you take the chair, and for the purposes of the minutes, could you tell us your name and address?
Okay, Manuel Pichas, 2 Alpha Road, Prospect.
And you've got 5 minutes if you need.
Got 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor, councillors. So basically, I moved into Alpha Street about 13, 14 months ago, roughly. But I have been a business owner, property owner of Prospect probably for about 30 years on my side. Got some properties over there. So I'm not anti-business, I'm not anti-development or anything like that. Because like I said, I've got my own commercial stuff and things like that. The problem I've got with Alpha Road is getting into my house. Okay. So when I've got my trailer, and I've got a diagram I'm going to show you in a minute, I've basically got to go around the block, come around the other side from Prospect Road to go into my skinny little driveway, because luckily my next door neighbour's got a driveway there and cars can't park there. Try and maneuver my car, my trailer, which is a SUV, around the front of my house and the pillars, go to the other driveway and try and get into my back of my house. Okay. So our problem is, and this is not being directed, but BP Pop, is it? DB Pop, yeah. Basically, most times I've got anything up to 6, 7 cars parked there in the street. Certain days when they've got their meetings, it's just chock-a-block. Just to give you an idea, because I did speak to Mark, my representative councillor, and he was actually shocked because he basically looked on the internet to Google to have a look of what is actually on Alpha Road. And he was actually shocked and saying, wow. I said, no, I went there yesterday, Mark, and this is the actual facts. He went for a drive himself today and was shocked to know the differences. So I'm hoping that when you make a decision, it ain't on basically on, if you look it up at Google and say, well, this is what the situation is, because it ain't. Okay. So give you a rough idea, because I've only got 5 minutes. On the north side, which is my side of Alpha Road, we've got from, and this is the discrepancy of, and I can't understand why certain things in parkings are connected to these residents and not to where it's needed. So number 14 to 18, there's no standing at all. I don't see the reason why they've got that sign, but they've got it. 22 to 26, no standing. In front of 56, he's personally got a permanent zone for the resident parking only. So there's one resident that's got the privilege of having no one park in front of his place. He has got a lane, and he has got back entrance to his property. Okay. Then we go on the southern side of Alpha Road, starting from Main North Road. Halfway down, we've got no standing because there's got a park there. And part of the park after that, it's a quarter-hour parking. 63 to 61, 1 hour parking, 9 to 6, and 9 to 12 on a Saturday. 29 to 23, no standing. And then on the boundary, on the southern side, number 1, which is basically a bit further down from where I am, there's no standing, and the remaining area to Prospect Road, there's no standing between 8 and 9 and 2 and 4, which coincides with the school and the parents picking up their children from down the street. In fact, that alone is also a problem, because I prefer that they can park there in those hours, because when they can't park there, Alpha Road between Prospect Road to Priscilla Street, then it's even worse than what it is. So I can't understand why they won't allow the parents to park there for an hour, because usually they're not there much longer than that. So that's another issue, jamming up our street. When I first contacted the residents, and I spoke to a few of them when I got frustrated not being able to even get into my own driveway, a lot of them said, thank God. My husband, number 2A, said, my husband backed out, hit a car, because a lot of them have got driveways on the opposite side people can park. The lady told me she told council about it 2 or 3 years ago, nothing was done about it. So everybody's given up. What is disappointing is when I approached them all, I got them to sign a petition, presented to the council, my first petition, and all of them signed. It was only afterwards when a couple of them said, well, I've got
1 minute if you need it.
yeah, two teenagers. So when there was a letter sent out to the residents, the problem is there's 3 residents that now want permanent residence permits. Okay. When we had a meeting at my place, the reason why there's a 50-50, and I need to go into this report quickly because it recommends that nothing be done. It's actually not really accurate, because the report says 80% received a thing, 50% support, 50% don't. But it doesn't say in the report how many said, no, they want something to happen, but we need permanent parking permits. And the only reason that the number is high, 50, is because we agreed to be united. And the united was, no, we want something done, but we want to do it with permanent residence permits. That's right. So this report does not accurately tell you how many put that in there. You'll find it's more than what is to be done.
That's your 5 minutes up. Sorry. I can now move to questions, and we'll see if there are some from the.
Well, can I just have a few more minutes, please?
We very rarely do that because you're advised at the time limit in advance. I'll seek leave from the meeting, we'll give you another 3 minutes. People are happy to give another 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I
Most
appreciate it.
indicating that. So
Okay.
we'll stay up again, but please respect the time limits. When we reply.
So basically, in the report, it says that nothing should be done about it, leave it as it is. When we look at the report, it says that basically on a Wednesday, somebody from council went down there. They did a report on 1 day. 1 day doesn't reflect 365 days of the year. It basically says 22 parks. 3 of them are actually restricted, which is the ones I talked about, the 8 to 9 and whatever. So with those restrictions on the southern side, the other problem we've got is that Phil Pott has got on the back of his place 11 car parks on the western side of his car park. He's got 5 reserved for energy staff. He's got 6 vacant that's got for anyone to use. On the eastern side, there's 6 car parks and 4 lock-up garages. He obtains 2 buildings or 2 offices. So basically, he's got a majority. Not once in the last 2 months have I seen one of his cars parked there, which is a little white Hyundai, etc. So basically, all his staff, except for the execs and those energy people, are the only ones that park there. So he leaves all those car parks purely for his customers and no one else. So all his stuff are coming down our street. The diagram here, which should be turned around the wrong way.
Upside down, the other way.
Press it down. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep, and then swing it around.
Yeah. That's my house here. That's my house here to Alpha. Basically, when they have their big meetings, they jam 3 cars along there. They go on the overside. Just quickly bring this picture up, if you don't mind.
Got a minute 15 left.
Okay. Make it good slack. Probably is, Lord Mayor. This is a very. Just do that there. You can see that. So basically, what I'm showing is where I'm here, and I'm trying to get out there opposite my house. They park their cars over the boundaries. And when they park them over, which shows in that photo, you can't get in now. This is a wide picture. The road's about 7.5 meters. Most cars are about 2.5. Take the mirrors and etc. We've got very limited space. When we come from Priscilla, and we've got the little chicane here, you basically, the cars coming here, you can't get through. The only way I can do my car with my child is go around the corner, come through, with the 2 driveways here, I can lean into it that way. The car park there. And this is where we've got the problems. This should be a 2-car park. So in fact, what I'm requesting is if we don't go with the times, which I think is very important for the residents to have this time restriction, but there's a few residents that do want the residential parking ability. If we don't, we need to put yellow markings, so when they park the cars, they can't park near the corners. But basically, that's a 2-car park, not a 3-car park.
That's indicating the time's up. Which is not supposed to do that, but anyway.
Well, I had about probably 30 seconds. To get more.
Well, the ding is
But
going
Lord
on.
Mayor, the thing is.
Thank you. I'll just stop you there. We'll take questions as you saw the previous deputy as to whether there are any questions. Councillor Rick.
I just thought I would ask if you're aware though that it is council policy, or are you aware that it's council policy that if an area in the council district goes to time parking, residents are not guaranteed. So they have to adhere to that regulation. So the visitors might be 1 hour 9 to 5. That's the same for residents. So are you aware that's actually the policy? If things happen.
It was quite clear in the letter that was sent out for a response. And that's what the problem was when they changed their minds, the other residents, to support the 3 residents that needed for their teenage kids. Actually 2 did. One was only thinking of the future. There's only 2 residents that need that. Okay. So that's what the problem is with this 50-50 decision, because of that policy. And we can't understand why residential permits aren't permitted when a lot of districts do. And realistically, as a business, if you issue them and you charge a small fee, which no one will be, everybody will be happy to pay a small fee for it, you could use that money to go to good use. There's a park that needs lighting. Put it to some community, something to the thing. It's revenue that you can collect, to put to good use.
Thank you. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Given that it's not on the agenda discussing this point later on, and we don't know which way it's going to go because we don't know which way it's going to go. What's the one thing that, say, out of all the things we could do, what's the one thing that you think would solve as much of the problem as simply as possible?
Well, the same is exactly the restriction, the same way that every street that you take left and right of Prospect Road from here, left and right a lot of the streets, Kintore Avenue, example, 1 hour parking, 20 houses, 10 houses on each way, all the way to New Street, 1 hour parking. Which streets along here have not got either no standing, restricted parking from 1 hour? I've got photos of all of them. 1 hour, half hour, quarter hour, 2 hours. So basically, many streets left and right of the council have got restrictions. So our problem is that, and the other one was, like I said, we need to put some line marking to make sure they don't back up 3 cars when it's really a 2-car park. So that way, when it says you can only park from here to here, at least we can get the thing. I mean, I'm not being rude, I'm not trying to think, but you know, when you're paying $8,000 in plus in council rate for your house, that's what I'm paying, and I can't get into my own house.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Manuel. When we come to discuss this later on, would it be feasible to ask for council staff to, the parking inspectors, basically what we call them, to look at the measurements of 2 Alpha, you know, where that is, to see what is feasible with, you're saying there is space apparently for 3 cars there, but you're saying it should really be, say, 2 cars or 3 small cars or whatever. So would it be feasible to ask to go back and have a report on that situation? Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Thank you.
It is, look, it is feasible because like, as I mentioned, you don't forget, it's not just Philpott's small home guys and that he's doing there. I think they must have their once a meeting, whatever, they just jam all the cars up. Feasible, it's only 2 cars. Because basically, if there's 2 cars parked, one can reverse out and go that way. One can just go out, pull out forward. Okay? When they jam up the 3, as my photo showed, they come over. And when you're trying to back out here, don't forget, we've got about a 7.5 metre road. When you take your cars 2.5 feet, and you've got the mirrors on both sides, this shows it pretty big. When you see the restriction there, cars cannot get through from Priscilla to here unless they pull into somebody's driveway. The problem is exactly what every other street alongside us have had, and that's why they've got 1 hour parking. That's why they've got no standings, and etc. etc. Now maybe down our way, because this is the district centre, and it's probably needed for businesses to make sure people don't park all day. And we're just out of that. Problem is, we've got a company that's putting all his staff there. And why isn't he using his own car? Why are we getting blocked up to not be able to get into our own properties?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor De Backer.
So again, thank you for drawing these issues to our attention. And just for your information, we've probably had about 4 to 5 in the last 12 months, similar petitions coming forward, which is why I don't know, you might have been notified that we're actually having a citywide or sort of precinct-wide look at traffic management. Some of the issues that we're looking at, have you considered with the streets around the corner from Alpha? If they don't park in Alpha, do you think they'll park in the other streets?
I think the issue is around Priscilla. It's a 6 metre wide road, which is physically impossible to put cars both sides of the road.
Yeah.
And they've got no parking at all down that whole street. Today, actually, one of the Fox cars were around there too. There was 6 on our street and 1 around the corner. I think the problem's going to be when we restrict like we have, or as the council has got, in all these side streets here, right? No parking, 1 hour, quarter hours, whatever. If that happens to ours, maybe then he'll be starting to use his car park for his staff. And when he's got guests or clients or whatever, they'll come to, say, Alpha Road and park there, but they're not going to sit there for 5, 6, 7 hours. They basically, you know, go in there, do their deal, maybe take an hour, hour and a half or whatever. The problem is generally 2 issues there. And also for the parents. So when you're deciding this, think about that restriction for the parents. Because having that restriction also there, right, and as a parent, you want to park as close as you can to the school for safety reasons, having that restriction doesn't do them any favours. Doesn't do us any favours, because that really clogs up the street. So we should, or the council should maybe consider opening those hours up, leaving them as 1 hour, make that whole section 1 hour parking as requested. But more importantly, is I want you to take consideration that 50-50 is not an accurate report, only because if you looked at every applicant, see, they had a meeting at my place, and every resident said, you know what, we're going to be united, and will support it as one. Because they want to get, for their fellow residents, neighbours, the opportunity to be able to get a couple. There'll be probably 2 at the moment they would want. And like I said, you've got the last deputy, safety, security, use that money. There's a lot of homes that would like that, permanent, use that money for good.
Thank you. Any further questions from elected members? There being none, thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Bashas, and it's on the agenda tonight, so I recommend you do stick around to wait till item 10.1. It won't be long before we get there, I suspect. You can resume your seat in the gallery. Thank you. Okay, questions without notice. Are there any? I hope so, because I remembered to actually have it in the right place. This meeting. Deputy Mayor.
Wouldn't want to disappoint you, Mayor, by not taking the opportunity.
Thank you.
Question to the CEO. So I was pleasing to read or hear on the radio this morning around the local content decision regarding the submarine building going on. Led me to think about the good work that you're doing with regards to the French Quarter strategy, and I wonder whether I've missed a detailed report on where you're at and what the next sort of 3 to 12 months worth of activities are, or I wonder if that's coming to us soon, because I'm really interested just to see where that's going.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I was delighted to see that as well. That's very, very good news for our French Quarter strategy, because it's all about supply chain and local content. As you know, we're just looking at a new economic development plan at the moment, post the director's departure.
Yep.
I'm working with Dan on that, and I'll be coming back on where we're up to on the French Quarter strategy. So, yes, good news, and yes, I'll come back on what we're doing. We probably for another place, but we've been talking to Neighbourhood about what they can do and not do for us. So we're just in that process.
You're building the subs here.
They've moved into Prospect. It's an amazing outcome.
Oh,
Amazing.
mad.
If only there was a bonus, Chair.
Alpha Road,
Only there
maybe.
was a bonus.
Move the whole part there. Any
Main
further?
road, but
There's a site. Councillor Britt.
Canal.
Yes. Just can I just have a brief explanation? I'm not sure if anyone is in the gallery here for item 10.9, which was due to be discussed tonight, being the Collins Shopping Centre precinct upgrade for stage 2. Can I just have just I guess an understanding why that item was withdrawn, and also would it be possible, and if it's not at the moment, I can bring it back as a motion on notice. But would it be possible for where items are withdrawn, because they've been publicly advertised on the Thursday night before a meeting? People just come and the item just gets withdrawn. I mean, they might sit there and thinking, well, why has it been withdrawn? So would it be possible to actually have a note in the minutes as to why an item was withdrawn? Because I think it's, I guess, transparency.
So you have 2 questions there.
Yeah.
The first, thank you, Councillor. I withdrew the report for a couple of reasons. One is the director who would speak to it's not available, and I don't have anybody else who's available. Secondly, I had put to the director that I was underwhelmed by the recommendations of the report, and I felt that if he wasn't here to explain why he would be putting that forward, then I wasn't prepared to explain it, because I don't support it. But I'm happy for him to do that. We will bring it back. It's just, and my apologies for anybody in the gallery who came to that, but I really felt that we need to look at it again before we bring it back.
Second question is process. How could should we explain why not has been withdrawn in the minutes?
I think the short story is that we could in the minutes, and I'm happy for that explanation to be minuted.
Great, thanks for that.
There might be some procedural issue there, but let the
Yes, that's
CEO
fine.
deal with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
thanks.
Any
Thank you
further
for that.
questions without notice? There being none, we'll move on. Reports for decision. The first item is item 10.1, the request to change parking restrictions in Alpha Road Prospect. Petition outcome and review. The recommendations on page 5. Is somebody happy to move it in its current form? Deputy Mayor, wish to speak to.
I will move it to get it on the table, and given the deputation that we heard recently, that may have raised a few more questions that we hadn't considered asking for. So just to get it on the table, and looking forward to the debate.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pearce, wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I'm happy to second it, and I agree with Deputy Mayor's comments. I thought it was an excellent presentation by the Deputy. And I'll be interested to hear the arguments for and against. Particularly because, once again, like the responses were 12 and it was 6 and 6, 50-50, and we've gone in favour of one decision. So I'll be interested to hear other comments from other members.
Just reminding you, it's your only opportunity to speak to the item. Did you wish to speak any further?
No.
Thank you. I hope you appreciate me asking. So any further debate, Councillor Barnett?
Yes, if it was split into its 3 areas, the Mayor could indicate.
I'm happy to take it in parts.
Thank you. Because I'm at the stage only ready to support part 1, and well, part 3. But the resolution is not what I would prefer, because I'm not happy based on the petitioner and a few other matters about part 2. I do believe that it could go back again for another look, at some of the suggestions that have been raised from the petitioner. Because I'm not sure I can go on out with a measuring tape, and I don't know what the legal requirements are for that particular section by part 2. And also, I noticed that there has been a directive given by the CEO about parking matters throughout the cities. I don't know whether that is included in this, with a particular local business that has been raised about possible things happening with the way the cars parked illegally or whatever. Yeah, so I would like to have another look at some of these issues. So I guess I could do that by an amendment.
You're proposing an amendment?
Yes, I've got to think.
I think that Lynn's going to propose it.
Oh, all right. Well, I shall hopefully leave it to my fellow councillor to do that. Thank you.
Such trust,
Such
Councillor
trust.
Barnett. Let's hope it goes well. Councillor De Backer.
I'd like to move the amendment to part 2. So the wording I'd like to change does not support the installation of the proposed parking restrictions at this time along both sides of our.
So add the words at this time.
Yeah, at this
Okay.
time.
Yep.
And I'll speak to that in a minute.
So that's the amendment is there. As you know, I'll ask the mover and seconder if they support it. You might want to give them reason to say yes or no.
Yes.
By speaking to it a little bit.
Yeah, I will. I thank the deputy for coming and speaking to us. And like I tried to intimate to him, we've had 4 or 5 similar deputations and with equal levels of frustration, which goes back through the chair to the CEO to bring back a workshop and strategy. Now, I've circulated to all the leadership team that City of Norwood have just done a brand new spanking parking survey policy, whatever, that's on draft survey. They've got the same issues that we do with the conflict between business and residents. And it's a wicked problem because it's only going to get worse. So, and I think that's the thing that I try to tell residents. We're living in it, the inner north, and everyone wants to be here, which is a great thing. But, as talking about the value of car parks, we did a survey a few years ago, and the value of a car park in the village heart is about $30,000 a year. So they are valuable spaces. And so we've got a lot of people that would like to use them. So the upcoming, so I'll just make a note in port 2, coupled with the broader strategic review of parking being conducted. So that's currently being conducted. So what I'd hate to do, as councillors, we're strategic. What we actually want to do is have strategic, solid policy. And this amendment just makes that flexibility that it's not that we're not going to look at parking restrictions in Alpha Road, or maybe even painting defined car parks. That was something we looked at in other areas. But we're just not going to make it tonight because we actually don't know what the impacts are going to be in that whole precinct. So I think this is a responsible way to do it, but it just might take a little bit longer. So on that basis, I'd support all 3 points, and I'd encourage you to support the amendment.
Okay, thank you. So as is the process I use here, I now ask the mover, Deputy Mayor, if you're happy to incorporate that change, the words "at this time" added on the end of part 2.
And then I normally ask, can I speak to it? And
Yeah.
then you say no, you can just say yes or no.
That should have all happened in your head. So it's a yes or a no.
Yes, I'll support the amendment.
Okay, thank you. And second, Councillor Pearce, you have yes, happy to incorporate?
Yes.
And I'll seek leave of the meeting to incorporate. All those in favour of incorporating that change, thank you. That's unanimously incorporated, therefore no need for an amendment. Councillor De Backer, you have a couple of minutes left if you need.
Yeah, I would. I think it's really important that we strengthen our policy, because you can see there's a lot of people that need clarification about parking policy, and we have actually updated that quite recently. And I think we need a lot more clarification about timed parking along the village heart. And it may be that we have to look at Alpha Road, that's the extension of our village heart. We're getting more developments along Prospect Road to the north, and I think we basically need to revise what our current policy is. And I think what people are looking for is equity as well. They sort of see both sides of their street, and they see streets along Prospect Road, and they'd like to think that their rates in their street are getting the same service level as someone else in a similar situation. So hopefully the strong policy that comes back, and if I can ask a question through the chair about when that might come back to council.
Yes, see ya.
Probably as an outcome of our integrated survey, which through you, Chair, to the acting director.
Sorry.
So in terms of changing our policy going forward, one assumes it's going to be after we've done that traffic and parking survey that we're working on.
So through the mayor, we're coming back to things for April to workshop the ideas, the objectives, as well as there, actually get a feel for what you think is most important in regard to these type of issues. The idea would probably be, depending on what direction you take on that and what focus, we'll then come back in May with a draft policy so forward with. I don't think it'll take that long once you've actually given us guidance in regard to function. If we give you a series of ideas of how it's functioned elsewhere, how it might work, what it might mean. So I suspect in May we might have to do a draft policy that might be suitable for.
Thank you, Councillor.
Just one more question through the chair. Is it possible that the deputy can be informed, because that's a public workshop?
See ya.
Well, you're correct, Councillor. It is a public workshop, and the deputy would be most welcome to attend.
Thank you. Anything further? No, done. Any further debate on this item?
Just
Councillor
wanted to also ask the question if there's been sort of, I guess, any examples in the past where something like this has come to us either during, I guess, my time or before my time on council, where something could be supported in principle pending further community consultation. The reason I ask that is obviously we've heard from the deputy tonight that all the residents would love to see, time parking on the street, but there's just some concerns around, or I guess there was probably a lack of understanding of the impact that would mean being that you wouldn't get a guaranteed park and parking permits wouldn't be given, and all the residents would be impacted by those time parking restrictions as well. So I'm not sure how the amendment will guide, but has there been examples in the past where you can support something in principle pending further community consultation with residents?
See ya.
Chair, I'm not completely sure I understand the question. You can ask for community consultation as a councillor at any time. I'm not sure what that qualification would make on a resolution. What the amendment suggests is that it is open now, that we won't be proceeding, but it would be open to council to ask for further consultation. I think at this time, is the qualification, but at this point, we won't proceed, but council's looking for further advice and information and consultation to decide whether or not at this time will be removed. But to make the resolution subject to consultation, I think might create unnecessary difficulties.
Thank you. Just from the chair to contribute to this item, I'm grateful for the change to part 2. I think it's very sensible. A couple of questions for the CEO, and you might want to direct them somewhere else. If the issue is the Philpotts employees, and that seems to be a large provider of the vehicles in the street, albeit parking legally, they do have a business with parking out the back. Has somebody spoken to them about using their own parking out the back and not parking in the street? And the precedent for this question is what we did on Main North Road, raised by an elected member some time ago, Councillor Group, and the staff did go and speak to a number of businesses saying you need to park your vehicles on site. Have we done that?
Through you, Chair, Acting Director.
Through the mayor. Sorry. At
We've got
this,
enthusiastic directors.
at this time, we haven't directly approached the Philpott in regard to the issue. From the approach we've taken is they're parking legally in that situation. We don't have a direct issue with them. We would be happy to, of course, approach them and have an informal conversation about opportunity to park on their site.
So could we be assured that that conversation will happen?
I can assure you it will happen. I think Chair, the problem is that the response, we hope the response wouldn't be like this, but they are legally parking on the street. We're very happy to appeal to their public nature and ask them to help us out. Very happy to guarantee the conversation will occur.
Thank you. Notwithstanding that, we people who park and work in most businesses don't have the name of their company on the side of their car. Conveniently, these people do. They're good citizens. DB Philpott's been in business in our area for a very long time. I'm sure they'll be receptive to a conversation, but it's important we have it with them. Can I also ask, is Alpha Road, and for that matter, Gladstone, are they included in the precinct review that's being considered by staff?
So again, Chair, to the Acting Director.
So in regard to what we're coming back to, we do April, that's across city approach. So
Citywide.
it is included. The principles that we're looking to present to you will be applied on all roads.
Okay, perhaps a follow-up question then. We're certainly under a great deal of pressure from petitioners and others, as Councillor De Back has responded to, in terms of Myrtle Street most recently, but also Rose Street not far behind that, and other nearby streets. It seems to me, and some of us have raised this more acutely, we have a precinct issue around the village heart. Could you confirm that there is an approach around the precinct, or is it only citywide at this point?
My understanding, and through you, Chair, the Acting Director can correct me, but we're starting at a citywide policy approach, and then we might be able to zero in on problematic areas after that. But I think Council has to come to a landing on the pros and cons of various approaches, whether it be parking on one side of the street, permit parking one way. There'll be a whole pile of broader macro policy issues that Council will want to consider, and then we'll apply them to the more problematic areas. As you know, in the meantime, I've directed that there be an expiation blitz, for the want of a better word, around the village heart, to remind people to actually, we do have rules and they need to comply with them. That's a short-term proposition. The long-term proposition, medium term, is that Council has to be happy that, in fact, permit parking is something you want to consider in problematic areas. One side of the street will be something you want to consider, one-way streets, etc. And until Council comes to a landing on those at a larger policy scale, we won't be able to apply them locally.
Thank you. Can I urge you to come to us on the 14th of April with a precinct approach around the village heart? I think if you don't, that'll be a very large gap in the conversation, and that'll be pointed out to you. And I would suggest that solving the problems in the village heart is a good way to work out how to solve them citywide, so it can be used as an example or a precedent. There's been so much activity around the village heart, I'd be surprised if it's not a specific topic on the night. The issue of permit parking is a vexed one. When I've done my assessment of other nearby councils, they're granted rarely, and the council that grants the most is in the City of Adelaide, and they grant them after 5 p.m, not during the day in the main. The reason I have difficulty with those parks is that what I've seen happen is that residents abuse them, quite frankly. They park a car at the front so that no one else can park in front of their house, not because they need the park. And that means that the public road is not available for the public. And I think the members will have that discussion about how do we get this balance right. I have spoken to people who have registered old worn out cars that are incapable of being driven simply so they can put that car at the front of the house so no one else can park there, which seems to me to be a completely preposterous thing to do, given that even they can't park a useful car at the front of their house. So the issue of parking is a very personal one for some people and very difficult to solve. And also on the night you're talking to us, you may wish to give some thought to what sort of community engagement process we might want around these issues, because they are of great interest to a high number of people. So perhaps if you could initiate that discussion at the workshop would be very helpful. Thank you. Is there any further debate on this item? If not, I've been asked to take the recommendation, or the motion, sorry, now in parts. So I'll conclude the debate and ask the Deputy Mayor if he wishes to sum up, and I'll take it in parts.
Thank you, Mayor. I will sum up. So you stole a bit of my thunder, and to me it's a common sense first step to go and speak to the Philpots, who are reasonable people and solid members of the business community, and maybe completely unaware that they're having this impact. Secondly, that we seem to have a little bit of a contradiction here between an assessment. So I have a question actually to just jump in. So I have that, no question?
I'm summing up, sorry.
Okay, maybe I'll try to do it without it being a question. So on one hand, where it seems that we're saying that there's been no real issues, because I haven't really heard any reports of a large number of fines being issued to people parking illegally, but we've got some evidence presented on the night to say that it's quite likely that it's happening on a regular basis. So again, there's a bit of a lack of clarity as to what the actual reality is. The third point is that there seems to be an inconsistency with how things are dealt, and the description of the various parking treatments along Alpha Road may have been done over the last 15 years for different reasons, but we may not have, remembered why we did them 15 years ago. They may not be relevant still, which is not anyone's fault, but it just suggests that a review of those types of things would be useful. Yeah, to me, time parking isn't the answer, but it's a pity that the response that we got back from the team who reviewed this only really said we're not doing anything. It seemed to me like it was a bit of an all or nothing. Maybe that was because they were responding specifically to the request, but there might have been an opportunity there for, instead of saying that we will not do time parking, but we'll consider these other things, they might have made the petitioners feel like their voice had been listened to and heard and taken on board, and it might have instigated a little bit of lateral thinking amongst the team as to what else we could do if it wasn't time parking and there was another simple solution. So sure, it's not an easy job. Sure, and the team do a pretty good job overall, but maybe there's room for a little bit more lateral thinking in how we try to problem solve here and just look left and right at the key problem that we're looking at in the first instance. But I support the amendment and look forward to the new sessions, the workshops in the future.
Thank you. That concludes debate. I now take it in parts. All those in favour of part 1? Carried unanimously. All those in favour of part 2? Carried unanimously. All those in favour of part 3? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Again, members of the gallery, if you're here for the matter regarding the parking in Alpha Road, that concludes any discussion on that tonight. So you're more than welcome to stay for the entire council meeting if you wish. But if you wanted to go home and wash your socks or groom the cat, you're more than welcome to do that. We'd understand entirely. Thank you very much for your deputation. Now we move on to the East Waste Draft Annual Plan and Budget, item 10.2. Recommendations on page 13. Just note that we have the CEO of East Waste in attendance. I understand, CEO, you're not after a presentation, but you're here to answer questions. So we'll have you at the table here to answer questions, should there be any. I'll just seek leave of the meeting to allow the CEO to answer questions, should there be any questions. Just all those in favour of that, against that, in the case, thank you, that is allowed. We have the item recommended to us on page 13, and so I'd be happy to move it in its current form. Councillor Barnett, with respect to it.
No, it's always good, I think, to have these these reports, and most of them I think are very interested in the environmental parts and issues and that. So I think that's all for the time being.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, with respect to it.
No, thanks.
Okay, any further debate? Councillor Rick.
Question, is it the appropriate time to ask the question for the CEO?
Could be, lay it on me, see what happens.
All right, perfect. So, look, question, I guess, through the Mayor, to the CEO, East Wales, or Mayor if the Mayor wishes to answer. I'd like to hear what East Wales' approach is for over the next, say, year to 5 years of actually really nutting down the issue of getting people to divert food waste from the landfill bin to the green bin. Obviously, if we can divert our waste to landfill, in my opinion, that means it's going to be a less cost of us in state levies and state taxes as well. So I'd like to hear what the approach is from council's perspective, or particularly East Wales perspective, as a regional body, to look at the issue of food waste in the green bin.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
Thank you. Through the chair, there's probably two key things that we're looking at doing. We appreciate that diversion of food waste from the landfill bin to the green organics bin is the key thing for us and councils to do. So there's a $150, $160 cost differential between putting it into landfill and processing it, as well as all the great environmental benefits that come from that. So a couple of years ago, we stepped back from it and went, clearly education isn't working. Clearly providing the green organics bags is a great thing to do, but it's not the sole thing that's inhibiting people from diverting their food waste. You guys have had a fantastic program here over the last 4 or 5 years where you've hand delivered the compostable bags to every household. Yet your food waste diversion isn't at great levels above those that don't. So what that tells me is that provision of the bags themselves isn't the key answer, isn't the silver bullet. Albeit, I want to stress, it is a really positive approach. So we decided that education alone isn't the key. We want to understand exactly what households are thinking and what's ultimately going to drive them to get them to get their food waste out of the landfill bin and into the green organics. And it is a behaviour change in the house, and that's the fundamental difference. So we've partnered with Fight Food Waste CRC, the Cooperative Research Centre, and currently undertaking a project with them and Adelaide University around looking exactly at that. And we're deep in the middle of that at the moment, and hopefully towards the end of this year, we'll be able to have some preliminary results from that. And mid next year is when we'll get the final results of understanding exactly what's happening at a household level with people and food waste diversion. Second key thing that we're doing, and it's one of the programs proposed in our budget for next year, is actually looking at what a framework would look like to move from a weekly organics collection through to a fortnightly landfill. To move to a weekly organics, fortnightly landfill collection, and how we might manipulate that in the South Australian environment or the Adelaide environment where there are certain restrictions and so forth. There's a couple of or 3 trials that are happening at the moment around food waste and alternate bin collection processes. We'll use that data as well, but then manage it to how it would work for an East Wales council. So that would lay out a roadmap that would allow us to actually have some really informed discussions with state government and any councils that are interested in potentially sharing that option.
Thank you. Anything further, councillor?
Yeah, look, I thank you for your frankness. I really appreciate it. And I guess the only thing I will add to that is I still have regular conversations with residents that I talk to them about. You know, I found that session we had at the ABC building with Craig Telly really insightful. I have many conversations with residents and I talk to them, and some of them think, oh yeah, you've got the food goes into these bags and they put it in the landfill bin because they don't know that the food goes into the green bin. So I'd always try and get that message out there that people don't necessarily associate the food organics bags with food going in the green bin. They think, oh, that's nice, I'll put my food in it, but I still put my food in the red bin. So I actually believe it is part education thing, but I do believe that it is also part behavioural and the attitude of people as well. For those that do know, it's definitely, I see your point about behavioural, but I do think there is still that gap around people's awareness of that you can put all your food in, obviously out of the packets, but all your clean food in the green bin. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't have all the answers, but I do think education is still a problem with that.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor De Backer.
Questions and some comments. So again, thank you for coming to the council meeting, and I'm really keen to see how elected members can be part of that education process and contribute to the Fight the Food Waste CRC. So I don't know if you're looking at around the countertop bins, because I've had this discussion with our mayor. People have a $50,000–$60,000 kitchen. They're not getting these tinky little plastic beige bins. I certainly didn't. And it wasn't until a year later I actually got, you know, a nice white ceramic canister from Prima. It's not nicer. I'd love to get involved in, as an interior designer, how we could actually, you know, get people to find nicer receptacles. Is that the word for it? And make it a competition. Throw it to the kids to 3D print one, or artists to design one. But I think, you know, making it more attractive and creating interest around it that we can be part of and our community can be part of is an easier sell than just say put stuff in the green bin. Yeah, so it'd be really good to see some innovation and that communication around how we can get people using the countertop bins. So is there a way that elected members or the local government association can plug into that CRC?
Mr. Gregory.
Thank you. Not directly, but it's outside of the East Waste option if you want to. So any organisation can elect to become a member of the Fight Food Waste CRC, and there's a process to go through. But that doesn't preclude City Prospect, for instance, becoming an individual member. I question the value of that, given that East Waste is a member. It doesn't stop the LGA becoming members. I think once we've got the findings of our report, I think the ideas like you've suggested will add certainly some great value, and we'll be looking for community champions and other ways to progress it. And we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We understand that there is no silver bullet to what we're trying to do here, and I agree with your idea around the kitchen caddies. They're not the most attractive.
There's a suggestion box that we can use to direct ideas. That would be great.
Yep, by all means, email me anytime.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you. Further debate? Deputy Mayor. Oh, you're a second.
Sorry.
Barrels.
Nice question.
Yes, that happened after we
Okay.
spoke. didn't it?
Yes, I'll allow a question,
Thank you very much.
as long as it's just a question.
Well, it's going to be a question anyway. Could have asked it already if you shocked me. Do we, when I say we, I don't mean me, but do you guys carry out educational activities in schools? Because often we're looking to bring about almost generational change, which might sound like a big way to talk about what this is, what I think it is. It needs to start, and it might, and obviously it's going to take a long time. So are we educating people at that level, even though the kids aren't necessarily the ones who are, you know, throwing stuff in the wrong bin? They certainly have some influence as to what their parents and caregivers do.
I think schools have shown us they're miles ahead of households, but Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely. So part of our education program that's offered to all our member councils, we work with KESAB, who deliver a schools program. So there's an allocation of funds and a certain number of sessions that's provided. we advise that to the councils. Councils can either distribute that to the schools or the schools will contact council. So it's a bit of a two-way street as to how that happens, but it's certainly part of the program that we offer.
Cool, thank you. Any further debate? Just a question from me, Mr. Gregory, probably a couple of questions. The issue about changing from weekly general waste to weekly organics is the legislation, which unfortunately previous government thought was sensible, but I would state is not sensible. If the legislation was changed to say that we had to pick up putrescible waste weekly, would that satisfy your vision for changing the nature of the collection and the encouragement of food to be collected weekly?
It all comes down to the wording, and so yeah, I would probably have issue with putrescible waste if it was worded as such like that, because I think at the moment most people don't put putrescible waste into the organics bin. I think you're potentially looking at some conflict there, but we don't need too much wording. I mean, I think if council must provide a weekly waste collection is, you know, in its simplest form, that's all we need to do. It's ultimately up to each council then which bin is collected weekly, and then that would be feedback from their own community. So whether that's recycling, whether that's waste, whether that's organics, that's a decision for each council. It probably needs some massaging in the simplicity of the wording, but it's almost as simple as that it will give us that flexibility. Probably the one thing I would stress though is that there's quite a process to go through. So if we get that switch flipped tomorrow, we're still looking at a long lag time to be able to implement it properly to get the change that we want. So it's not, we can't flick it tomorrow and be out the week after Easter flipping bins in a different sequence, because you won't get the community buy-in that we need.
Certainly. And have you considered a bin lid sticker program as part of the CRC research on how consumers behave? Something that says food, no food on the bin lid. So the point of decision making by the householder, at least at the bin rather than inside. Is that something you've thought about?
Yes and no. We haven't considered it in earnest. Is the honest answer. Simply because by the time you get to the bin, it's too late. That decision has got to be made before, and the behaviour change has got to happen within the household. So it's a bit different to cardboard and paper that's, or an empty fruit juice bottle that's easy to pull out of your plastic bag and flip it at the bin. With food waste, you've got to do that in home.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further from me. Any further debate? No, that being the case, Councillor Barnett, just to sum up.
Yes, thank everybody for their discussion and their points to raise that have been raised. And it was mentioned about the say community involvement or through schools, but I do know through my involvement with Prospect Local Environment Group and to some extent our community garden, that it's been quite valuable to have those grants and the officers involved, particularly the officer at our council of Prospect. But if I had been allowed to ask a question, it would have been around the point that has East Waste considered perhaps pulling together all some of the environmental groups that are in our council areas and community gardens, perhaps even to have a community, some workshop or something, along the lines of how to get the message out and utilise that at the real grassroots level as well. So with that, I commend the recommendations to council.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Gregory.
Thank you.
And can you make it cheaper next time?
Always recommend.
Thank you very much. Item 10.3, the JW Ratley Reserve Playground Upgrade recommendations at page 34. I'm just aware, members, that there may be some comments on this. Are there any members of the gallery here for that item? If that being the case, can I just seek leave of the meeting to pull forward the item 10.4, the Collinswood Local Area Traffic Management 12-month trial results. Because there are members of the gallery here for that item. I seek leave of the meeting to pull it forward. All those in favour? Against is carried and thus moved forward. Now move to item 10.4 and ask recommendations on page 40 to 41. Somebody happy to move that way? Councillor Harris.
No, I was going to ask a question first, please.
I'll take a question first.
If I want to change something in there, I can't move it to change it, can I?
You can't amend as a
Right.
mover.
Yeah, so I have to wait to amend it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Do I have someone who wishes to move it in its current form?
I'll move it together, obviously on the table, and then I'll obviously listen to amendments or how the debate goes. Look, I just want to, and I thank the people for coming in the gallery for this item tonight. I'm aware this has been a long outstanding, or this long sort of issue, and it's definitely. I guess I began to get quite involved in this issue during the election campaign. The residents regularly asked me to pop down, see accidents, see things going on in the area. And I was amazed at the amount, even when I was out walking on the street, the amount of near misses that would occur. Seeing even one of our local residents was provided footage before the trial started. I believe we all got a copy of that, of a serious car accident to really highlight the issue in its initial phase. And that resident was provided footage from the Caltex service station, which showed, if you haven't seen it, I'm happy to obviously run that past you. But a car going down North East Road, someone turning right into Rudderglen, being clipped, the car did a double barrel roll, flipped right over twice and landed back on its feet. We're very lucky that car that particular day landed back on its feet, because it didn't, the result could have been a lot uglier. I'm really pleased to see that we, and I thank the council for over 12 months ago supporting the trial. I think the trial overall has been really successful, and I want to see it retain myself permanently. I think this trial strikes a balance right from the feedback I've heard out in the community during the trial. It strikes a balance right from and it's still allowing people to turn left from North East Road, left in to Rudderglen and Edwin, but it's about restricting, I guess, the major danger problem that's been restricting the right-hand turns from northeast onto Rudderglen and Edwin, and right-hand turns out onto northeast as well. I'm pleased to see that car accidents have significantly reduced at the intersections. I'm also really encouraged, particularly by the recent workshop, which showed that it appears to have really helped alleviate some of the other streets, particularly North Street. And there was another street mentioned, just skip my brain.
Salisbury Terrace.
Yeah, good, thanks. Alan, Salisbury Terrace, it's really restrict that cut through traffic, particularly in the morning, and also some in the afternoon. And I'm really, because I know the residents were regularly telling me, both during the election period and after, that they're sick of the amount of traffic. Yes, some local traffic has to get out, but they're also sick of seeing people coming from all walks of life, using our side streets and using Edwin and Rudderglen as a quick ease of access onto North East. So I'm really pleased to see that a lot of that, what appears, particularly from the workshop, that a fair bit of that cut through traffic has reduced, and I think that's really encouraging. It's also meant that, yes, some more people have gone onto Galway Avenue, which we knew that was likely to happen. But I'm also encouraged that I did my only, I guess, hesitation with the trial, and I've been wanting to monitor it during, and I have been monitoring during the trial, was to see if that would put pressure on people turning right at Harvey, because that would obviously mean, you know, that logic during the trial and feedback from residents was that they were concerned that that would see a flow on to Harvey. I had a few conversations with residents to see that, yes, it's had a little bit of an increase, but it hasn't been as much as what some of them were thinking it would, which I'm also encouraged. Also, at the same time, obviously, the shopping centre going in at the Collins Shopping Centre, I know from a couple of residents on Cassie Street that have raised their concerns, I guess, around the pressure with the new supermarket being open, but I was quite encouraged with what I got back at that workshop recently. I do encourage council to support this as a permanent solution, and to address those safety issues and also that cut through traffic. And I'll leave my comments there and listen to further debate.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Unless there's somebody else. I'll second it for debate, because I know there may be an amendment or questions coming. So yes, it appears to have worked in the main areas that it was designed for, but I did note the Cassie Street, and I don't know whether we know the reason for it, without a bit more further mini research, that their traffic actually increased. So whether that's a result, who knows at the moment. And they're still getting the trucks coming down there. So I don't know if the CEO's some parking blitz might wander around down to Cassie Street. Anyway, so yeah, so that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question first, and then I would like to move amendment. On page 42 in paper, so I assume it's the same in the rest you've got, that it talks about the traffic changes that's happened. Green, a reduction and no change, yellow increase 1, 5, orange increase 6, 10, red increase over 10. And the map we got on page 42, the traffic survey map, it's only got red dots, including in Edward and Rutherglen. So I don't know how they increased by 10%. So I'm assuming that map's wrong.
That's the question.
Yeah, that's the question.
CEO, is the map wrong?
Through you, Chair, to the acting director, is it wrong?
I wouldn't say that.
I've got a picture of it here.
It would appear that it should be.
I think it's the location of the traffic counters,
Councils, yeah.
not the actual, not the
Yeah, sorry, through there, that is the traffic survey map. The red indication where the counters were.
Yeah. Other than that, it's irrelevant. It just shows where the counters were.
Other
So we didn't get to see where it was. Okay, look, here's my amendment. I'm fully going to support the whole rest, and then I'll speak to it once I do it. But for number 5 is what I want to amend. Retains the traffic treatment of Edward Avenue North East Road intersection rather than North East Road in that North East Road. What we raised in the workshop, what I unfortunately raised with the director Simon, and then very briefly, which was only a short period of time that I knew with the current acting person. So all due respect to all people there. The idea is that we've had the discussion. My amendment would be to retain, all those words would be correct, but to include, to fix it with particularly plantings, various trees, bushes, whatever, on these things. And the thing that I sent through, unfortunately Simon as well, but sent through the 2 areas on Edwin Street from the traffic control device to the main northeast road to be able to block off that little section there. I've got the map, and the one near the petrol station, it was rather maybe would take a bit more looking at. I still like to see the same thing. So I'm saying that the treatments from the current temporary treatments, I'm asking for them to be continued through to the main road to stop people parking on that side, and for the treatment to have plantings and other things to make it look permanent. I'll explain why I have it.
Okay, so you don't have any actual words there for us?
I thought I could change it. It
Right,
was all
okay.
too late that I
So
discovered
perhaps
it.
if I try and interpret what you've got on item 5,
Plantings and things to make it look permanent.
we probably would use a word like things if I can. So I think the first change you wanted to make was to extend them to North East Road. Is that right? To block.
Yes.
To block the opportunity for.
Okay, for the first bit at Edward Street, to continue it through to main North
thank
East
you.
Road, to the North East Road, sorry.
So after the word North East Road at the end there, Joseph, if you could.
On the
And then
Edward Street at the top.
including extending the Edwin Street treatment to North East Road.
Avenue.
So Edwin Avenue, sorry, to North East Road. I didn't hear that member of the gallery speak, just came to me.
It would have come to them ago.
Right.
And the second part,
And the second part then is the Rutherglen Avenue from the same, from the current treatment to the main north, to the northeast road, to be looked at in a similar fashion.
so the Rutherglen Avenue treatment to be,
From the treatment to the main north, I keep saying main, I apologise, to the northeast road,
the Rutherglen Avenue treatment to be
extended to the main, to the northeast road.
Be better.
Yeah, the other end is Northeast Road as well.
The other end is Northeast
Yeah,
Road.
sorry.
Yeah, it's got main North Road.
another business company, yes, we'll get to that in a second. Rutherglen Avenue, the Rutherglen Avenue. Treatment to be extended to Northeast Road whilst accommodating service station exits.
Just on that line, it's northeast road, it's not main north road.
We'll get there.
Oh, yeah, all right, sorry.
This is a problem with people coming with amendments not written up, councillor, but given that you're only new to this game, I'll let you off this part. So you go back a sentence, Jazz, and change Main North Road to North East Road. Thank you. And the third part was for the treatments to be landscaped.
To landscape, yes.
Okay.
And I've got it there.
Could they be done as 5 and then parts 1, 2, and 3 after including?
I'm afraid we're in the hands of the amender at this stage, councillor. Sorry, another sentence, Jazz. And for the traffic treatments to be landscaped. Just checking with you, councillor, that's what you wish to do. Can you just read that?
Yes.
Check that.
Yes.
The avenues and roads and easts and norths. sorted. Okay, now who's to
Now I'm
speak
gonna
further
speak
to
to
your
it. I'll
amendment?
start by clicking the time, you get that phone going. Look, the reason I'm doing this, and I'll leave the rest because you've done a good job at the first bit, in case I can't get to that bit. What happens is we've got these two divisors in two streets that are put there. They're to a large degree work, but not total unfortunately, to a large degree it's work. But for people living in the streets, they're a temporary sort of setup that look temporary, and they are temporary. But it'd be good now that we're going to vote tonight, hopefully they become a permanency. Putting plantings, trees, shrubs, landscaping on the situation has twofold. Makes it look more permanent, makes it look part of it. But, and a very good example is Clifford Street and the shopping centre on Main North Road, when we done that corner with the rocks and various things like that. But also, if you got the little camera on your car when you're driving along there, it also makes it very hard for people coming down either of those streets when they hit that area, or I'll just duck through. And I've got people in my car that have just ducked through. And when I've approached them in the petrol station, I won't even, because I've got the camera, I can't use the words they use, but they weren't interested. So by putting plantings in, it makes it look good, but also blocks that vision. So people, when they're going to try and do a sneaky and come down, oh, I'm not too sure. Boom. Yeah. With the acting director, when I spoke tonight, this is why I've changed that bit in rather that I think it can go right through. 1 minute if you need. Yeah, I think it can go right through, but I'm open to have a look at that situation because it was explained to me tonight. There's the things with the petrol station and people coming out, the tankers and all that. My answer back, which was other people didn't have that knowledge, the tankers are not supposed to come down that street anyway. They're supposed to go out through the proper exit, and I believe the cars can do the same. So I think that can be looked at and worked at. But apart from that, I think my co-councillor for the push he done with that, this street started when we done the Hampstead Hotel. They didn't just come, you know, the last election or this. They've been going for a long time. And I'm very, very happy that the involvement that the people in the streets took, the end results and the streets that you'd already named. You didn't say Burwood Avenue, but it was Burwood and the other ones that has actually cut back the traffic going through. So please, can I get the amendment put as part of it? And then we'll go that way. If not, I'll move it as an amendment.
Okay, thank you. So as per what I normally do, I'll ask permission of the mover to incorporate and the seconder So mover, councillor Rick, happy to incorporate the change.
Usually I wouldn't do this, but I just need, I think it's really important to ask this
A
question.
yes or a no.
Whether they can actually implement it, the staff.
It's a yes or a no.
I'll say yes.
Thank you. Seconder, councillor Barnett.
And I will say yes, provided it's grammatically correct after including.
I will accommodate that one, unfortunately.
Including colon, part 5,
Aye.
part 1, extending blah, blah, 5, part 2.
Including colon after including.
Just
Thank you.
No colon.
colon.
Thank you. That's a yes and a yes. And now seek leave of the meeting to incorporate the change. All those in favour of incorporating the change? Thank you. It's thus incorporated. Noting that there's no time frame for that, elected members, and the amended now incorporator has fully spoken to it. Does anybody else wish to speak to the right? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, I think when voting, I think the fact that we have to be cognizant there isn't a time frame, and I think it's good that the gallery's here because this didn't come to us with a financial implication. So everything will be subject to budget variation, which will have to be voted on. So I think what we're saying, yes, we in principle want to do this, and I think Councillor Harris has made some really good points because that was the feedback in here that people are still sneaking through. So yes, you know, to an extent you can expiate, but you've got to catch them doing it, and you want to have a deterrent. And also, I think it's where we can plant anywhere along North East Road or near North East Road. I think that's really important. But with due process, with any anything that comes to us, generally we would have in our council report what the financial implications would be. So this will have to come back to us to council. So it may be a period of time before it actually happens. So on that basis, I'll be supportive.
Thank you. Any further debate? There being none, councillor Rick, wish to sum up.
Yeah, I do. Also want to thank both my co-councillor for the work he's done on this as well, and to thank the residents that have really initially driven this with that initial petition that while ago to it. I also note that I do encourage residents to, if they do see, following on what Councillor Harris had raised as well with people sneaking through, if residents do see it, best thing you can do is keep reporting it to the 131 number. Keep reporting people doing the wrong thing, and eventually, hopefully, the police might see there's some revenue to be made, and they might come out and do something and sit there and police it. I have been aware that police have at times sat there and particularly early in the trial and monitored it. So I do encourage residents to keep reporting people who don't do the right thing. I encourage all residents to support this. I think, yeah, it'd be great if we can get this a permanent solution. Obviously, taking on board that we would support this. I guess the traffic devices will stay as they are now, pending obviously budget implications for plantings and moving. That will really do. I think this will send a strong message to the residents in Collinswood and Broadview that we support this and be here permanently.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against, it is carried unanimously. Thank you. Good result all round, I think. For those of you in the gallery interested in that item, thank you for your work over a long period of time. That solution is now permanent, as you've seen in the report and as I'm voted on tonight. Hopefully one day there'll be some landscaping in it and we can afford to do so.
Thank you very much, guys.
So we can go home.
Thank you very much.
You can go home, councillor, but there's a couple of things you might want to say about. Thank you very much. Now, in light of trying to work our agenda around our gallery, I'm aware we have the last remaining patient person in the gallery is here for item 10.6. So I'm going to seek leave of the meeting to pull forward item 10.6. All those in favour of doing so? Against? That is thus pulled forward. So we'll now deal with item 10.6, which is the consultation results of Prospect Estate right of way. And if a member of the gallery would like to come forward so I can hear a little bit clearer, that's up to him. And I understand the member of the gallery is here representing the party seeking the easement and is not doing a presentation or here to speak or answer questions unless somebody has a question for them, and has been liaising with the staff around what's before us. So moved to item 10.6, consultation results, Prospect Estate right away. Is somebody happy to move it as a further recommendation on page 76 to 77. So the back, wish to speak to it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pearce, wish to speak to it.
Just quickly, I think it's a good result. That whole area will be improved greatly with the developments proposed. I think it's a win for the council in the demolition of the existing toilet blocks to be replaced with a Platinum Series XL2. That's fantastic. And landscaping and pathways, safety fencing, etc. So yes, it's a good result.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Can I ask some questions, please?
Absolutely.
One, yes, 5 minutes.
He's learning. He's
I
learning.
might make up a limerick. So a couple of things. The platinum level XLU, whatever it might be, will that become a standard across our? We have plans now that we are having that in place there, and we're moving toward the self-cleaning model. And they look pretty good, and there's a lot of fairly dodgy, a number of fairly dodgy toilet blocks around the place. So we have plans to move toward that model if that proves to be an efficient way of upgrading facilities elsewhere.
CEO, you conduct enough research to answer this question?
I've been down to the current facilities look, in short, it's an interesting pilot for us because we haven't done one of these before. This is, an expensive toilet. It's the one that we would aspire to for public toilets. And we know that other councils have got them. It will be interesting for us to assess it when it's in there, and certainly subject to, as always, cost. Would be seeking to roll them out, but this does give us an opportunity to actually see how it works and the efficiencies.
Thank you.
Two more questions. I note that the location of the toilet actually gets quite a place on our main road. We could use that, welcome to Prospect.
No, sorry, through your chair, no, it won't be on the main road.
But isn't it right at the front?
It's
still misreading the plan.
Still to be finally negotiated, but I understand it'll be at a level accessible from the car park easily, and the car park set down from the road. So by necessity, it's got to be a little bit further down the hill, but not as far down as the current.
From the drawings that we've got here suggests that it looks like it's right at the very close to Prospect Road.
2A Part 2 in the recommendation, it says the toilet is to be in a location directed by the council. So that's not finally determined yet.
We've got a picture of it sitting there in private place on Prospect Road.
Yes, you may well, but
I could only presume that
the picture is, as per 2A Part 2, the picture is not determining the location. That'll be a subsequent decision.
use it as an advertising welcome to Prospect.
That could be considered.
Yeah, this good way of sell advertising space. So it's good to hear that it might not be positioned as prominently as that. Third question, probably not one that anyone's going to have an answer for, but maybe worth raising anyway. Does this set a precedence? I like the idea, I'm going to support it. I think it's been approached well. I think the questions that have been raised during the consultation process are good questions, and I think they've been answered well by the team, and they should have allayed most of the concerns that people have. Do we feel like this might, is there any scenarios where this might create a precedence that we might not have anticipated down the track, which might come back to bother us a bit more than what this one does right now? Too hard to predict, I suppose, really, isn't it?
I guess I'm happy to have a go and answer and see to follow up if I've missed something. But the idea that a neighbour can ask us to consider something on our land has always been available. This is classified as community land, so the staff have advised me to go out to a full consultation process with this, which we've done. I don't think it rules anything in or out, except that we're open to discussion, and we need to talk to the community about these types of things. I think it's been a good process. CEO, have I missed anything?
through you, Chair, it's a very, in the overall scheme, a very small concession
Mm.
to allow a major redevelopment and a huge upgrade of public facilities. So we think it's a good model.
The idea of it being a precedent to
I
something.
can't imagine it would be any kind of
Mm.
precedent. Chair, you're right to keep me on that question. We can't imagine that we're committing to anything else because we're committing to this.
Thank you. Anything further?
Just to clarify, so I wasn't concerned about the consultation process. I was just interested in other scenarios where people might see that decision and go, I'm going to think about how I might take advantage of something there. But we assess each one on a case-by-case scenario, go through the proper consultation process, and wouldn't approve anything that we weren't happy with. So that's the end of my 3 questions.
Yeah, thanks. I'll speak just briefly from the chair to follow up on that. I think other examples of where we've done that have been the car park out the back, where the building next door needs access to our car park for their basement car park to work. And I think we'll all agree that's an eminently sensible solution, but we have to grant that right. And that's another example. Any outdoor dining permit is an example of where we allow public land to be used for private gain. I mean, you could argue that the private gain for a really successful business with a large outdoor dining area is worth more on a regular basis than what this deal is worth to this person. But we routinely do those. In fact, we encourage them. They don't always work. Some of us regret that the outdoor dining request on Barker Gardens wasn't successful, and that may come back to us at some point. So I don't think it's a blank check that we give people. I mean, we've got a couple of good examples, namely the cinema footpath upgrade and the Mizimazi footpath upgrade, where the owner has contributed substantially to the capital cost, as is the case in this instance. So I don't think there's a template, but there are certainly good examples of where council's mind has been exercised as to how we can work with our ratepayers for greater gain. And I encourage that. I think it's something we do regularly, and I think it's a good thing to do. I think in this instance, I'm particularly pleased with the community consultation process, and I commend the staff for having done it and getting such good responses, not just the rate of responses, but the sort of comments in them were remarkably similar, even from those who didn't support it. They said, these are the issues I see and therefore I won't. But those issues raised were about the nature of the type of toilet or the type of access or whether there's time parking on the car park and a few other matters. And all of that consultation has led to a better recommendation coming to us. And that's what's before us right now. And I think that's an exceptional outcome in terms of demonstrating that the community add value to our decision making when we ask them rather than detract from it. So I think it's very good. It does remind me, however, that we did have a suggestion earlier to the CEO that part 3, which talks about the implementation of a 2-hour time limit, not be decided in terms of the hour limit tonight, but that be dealt with as any other time limit by the staff. They only need to come back to us if they need to come back to us. And that item 4, the proposer of the LMA has asked for the heavy vehicle condition to be ameliorated to allow emergency vehicles and the waste collection vehicles that enter their basement to be dealt with as well. So I might just seek leave of the meeting. Apologies that we've just moving through this item a bit more advanced than we thought, but we forgot to bring these 2 items to your attention. I might just test the floor to seek leave of the meeting to incorporate those 2 changes. Obviously, part 4 there, waste collection vehicles approved by the council would mean the CEO would be under delegated power to work out that as a sensible approval, not a not sensible approval. And that the time limit is one resolved to suit picnickers as much as people visiting a restaurant. 2 hours to me seemed a little short and too prescriptive at this point. So I'll just test the mover to start with. Councillor Back, are you happy to incorporate those 2 changes? Thank you. And Councillor Pearce is second. Are you happy to incorporate those couple of changes? Yes. Now seek leave of the meeting to incorporate. All those in favour? Against, thus incorporated. Thank you. And that's all I wanted to say, was that I think the recommendation has been improved through the consultation, which I think was exceptional, and that these are very sensible changes to leave matters in the hands of the CEO to negotiate both the exact terms of the LMA and also to work with the community around what's a sensible time limit for a picnic or a wedding or whatever. but that's all from myself. Further speakers, sorry, further question?
I was going to ask a question before we move through a little bit too quickly, so can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, with the exception of energy vehicles and waste collection vehicles, approval council, the only other scenario I can think of which might cause the problems is removalist vehicles and those kind of things like that. That seemed like an obvious place for them to park whilst moving people in and out, because I assume that access on Regency Road won't be too amenable for that. So do we think we need to consider that as well, or just not worry about it? I don't want to have that too long and too complicated.
There are always exceptions to any of these waste limits anywhere for those sorts of things. And I'll give you an example, saying construction vehicles in any residential street for the purpose of building, which are already dealt with under delegation. The issue here is to stop the construction traffic using it, because they will pound the living daylights out of it, and that's in the recommendation.
Yeah.
And that's what will happen unless there's some other deal done about that. CEO, you need our approval to allow removal trucks on that.
Deputy Mayor, I think it's a really good point, but where do we stop?
Yeah.
Emergency vehicles, I think council can fully accept, and the one thing that the developer raised was that if they couldn't get their waste trucks in there, of course we wouldn't want that from a public health point of view, but also it would mean that the whole development can't proceed because it's predicated on that.
Yeah.
Should it become a problem, I'd be very happy to bring it back to this body to talk about, but we think that amendment's a very reasonable amendment and responds directly to the request that we've had.
Yep, thank you for that.
Thank you. Any further debate? Let's see someone else's hand. Councillor
Yes.
Barnett.
I think I remarked when we had the workshop and presentation on this that it's the proposal solved a lot of problems for a area that, you know, on construction and all that, from a planning point of view, it's quite difficult, and it's certainly a big improvement to what's there, and certainly from council's point of view, to gain a better and perhaps a healthier type of toilet would be great. And I think once all this is over, I think it might be looking again at that park, because it's a bit old and tired, apart from the toilets being old and very tight. So I think anything that we can do to improve it for residents who might use it, or visitors, and even the people that will become the residents there. And I think it was a good process in terms of coming from a developer, coming to actually explain to council, and you know, we're able to question things and work out things, particularly I think about how the traffic worked, like in and the out. We haven't got a flow through system at all, which I think was some of the consultation people didn't perhaps, what they raised. So just explaining now, it's not going to be a drive through from one part of the road to the other by a member of the public. Where the people are who actually have the apartments there, that is a particular design to prevent that process happening. So I think if we to make that clear. So again, yes, and the consultation has been explained by the mayor that we're legally required to do it because of the change of use of small part of the community land. So I think all in all, it can be considered a very positive outcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to correct a misstatement I made. And as chair, I don't want to leave that hanging. I said the construction vehicles can't be on it. They can't be on it once it's constructed. So they can up until it's been rebuilt to service this purpose. So just to clarify that. Any further debate? I know, rare.
Yeah. I haven't noticed you make a mistake like
I
that.
know. 14 years. The
Yeah.
wheels are getting wobbly.
Oh, I'll look in my diary. That's trick on mine.
If there's no further debate, Councillor Babak, if you wish to sum up.
Yeah, look, some interesting comments around the table, and I think good that it's gone out to community consultation because it is community land. But look, I'm really excited by this development, and I think it's turning a challenging site into something that's a real great asset. And I think, you know, the good work that's been done in trying to protect the verges, or what do you call it, so it doesn't get snapped up as part of a dicty road, has made that a viable site as well. So all that background work. And I think you can just sell it that for the price of an apartment, you get a backyard for free that the council mows. So I think, you know, go and sell them and get the thing built. I think it'd be great to get it up. And a cafe at the bottom, so it'd be wonderful.
Here, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. As per my previous speeches to the gallery, if you wish to stay for the balance of the council meeting, we perfectly understand, but if you have somewhere else that you'd rather be, thank you for your interest. Okay, we'll return now to item 10.3, the JW Ratley Reserve Playground Upgrade recommendations on page 34. I don't put this agenda together. I'm just trying to chair it on your behalf. So let's see how we go. Is somebody happy to move it in its current form?
Well, I'll move it for the sake of discussion. Again, I'm sure hopefully there will be discussion about part 3. I know that we listened to consultation, but you know, I think it's based on about one person or 2 people, but they're just as important, I suppose, as 100 people for their comments. Yes, I'm just wondering if there might be some amendment coming, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
Take great pleasure in seconding this motion. And interested to hear what other organisations have to say.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, look, I think the challenge with all of this is that we want a lot and we never want to pay for it. And this is us, you know, it's coming back to us and this is what it costs. I think one of the things I do get very frustrated about is the catalogue approach. And I noted that some of the items that were in the proposal were exactly the same as the Vine Street Plaza proposal. It's kind of like copy and paste Pinterest, you know. And look, I know we've gone the wooden echidnas and at quite a few of our things, and the nature play is all a big thing, but I'm always shocked at how much that stuff costs as well. And I think the challenge is always, you know, when we're removing what to our residents seem like perfectly good and exciting, climbable, fun play equipment, and then we go to replace it and realise it's going to cost us a couple of $100,000. This is the shock, and I think there's almost a bit of an education that needs to happen to say, okay, councillors, you know, if your vegetation is X per square metre, if you're looking for a, you know, climbable thing, it's probably going to be around this size. And when we're actually having these discussions, we've got a bit of an idea of what we're getting, because in many ways, I'd say, well, let's pull back on some of, you know, this stuff, and because what we really want to focus on is the climbing thing. But we didn't really have that discussion. What we got was a couple of underwhelming things that, and some planting that the kids trod on, and some murals that looked unfinished. And so there's a whole lot about this concept that I don't think people, the concept in the beginning really delivered for the people who use it, which are the kids and the families, what they were after. So though I am supportive of going for, I would say, probably probably version 5 just on cost wise, I don't think we can afford it. You know, this is the challenge. And whether we say, look, this is going to be 21, 22, and I think that might have to be the reality, to say, look, we're going to do this, but we're going to watch our pennies this year and pay for it next year. I think that would be the responsible thing to do. But I've been really disappointed with the journey But hopefully, if we could at least say, yes, we're all in agreement, we want to buy a decent piece of play equipment, because that's actually who it's for, that we need to pay bills. So I'd probably welcome an amendment that it's in the 21-22 budget. That's me.
Sorry, you welcome an amendment, but you're not prepared to do it yourself.
Well, I can do if I, if I've spoken, if I could.
You still have a minute or so to do so.
Okay, so, yes, at part 3, I'd like to move an amendment that we be captured in the, let's say, the second quarter budget review for, the budget for 21-22. So get rid of the word review and third quarter in the budget for, yeah, 21-22. Yeah.
So CEO, can you just devise some words that will be clear for your team?
And this adjustment, the capture the budget. Well, we need to probably, when presenting the council, yeah, I think that is clear. So we'll have to, we will have to present it as a budget.
Thank you. Do you speak any further to it?
Well, just going a bit further to that, look, we're cognizant of the fact there was another motion that was supposed to come for us tonight that found $34,000 from somewhere else, which I was really disappointed about. So I'm not, you know, doing this, but what I'm saying is this deserves a decent piece of equipment, but to be fiscally responsible, we have to do it when we can afford to do it. I think that will be the next financial year.
Okay, thank you. As per procedure I run, I'll now seek leave of, so I ask permission of the mover to incorporate. Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. And the deputy mayor seconder.
Give one question.
Oh, that's,
Not during this phase, no.
common no.
No, okay, then it's an amendment that you wish to move, councillor De Backer, and you pretty much use
Yeah,
5 minutes to speak to it.
Yeah.
Yep. Do I have a seconder for the amendment?
Yes.
Councillor Rick, you should speak to it.
Look, I will. I don't want to, again, I guess, repeat all the previous points the mover of the amendment did, but I've been really disappointed with this, I guess, process as well, and what it's led to, and I would have liked to have known all these cost things and everything, particularly for these particular items well before. Look, I know a lot of it comes down to cost, but it would have been potentially nice to see a swing, something extra in there for people, or a decent swing at it. But I appreciate that adds extra cost. And this is where the administration, after, I guess, really let's say three iterations, because we've had the initial upgrade, it's come back, and now it's coming back again. So I can understand the frustrations of the residents too in the wider area with this. The first, I guess, upgrade for me and seeing the feedback online was underwhelming. We're now trying to rectify this, but we obviously are being told that to rectify it is going to be an additional cost of 33,575, and I'll be honest in saying I do not want to see. I'm glad item 10.9 was pulled tonight, because I would have been really, I was very underwhelmed and upset with what was on, and I was going to have quite a stern speech to deliver. So I'm actually glad I don't have to deliver that speech tonight, because I think, we'll leave that at that. But I do believe in the art of trying to find an additional 33,575 in this financial year. It would be better to do it, whether it can be done early in the new budget. So I don't want to see it as well coming and being delivered in June 2021 either. We are going to approve it, and in, I guess, the next budget, I think, because we've got the concept design here, I wouldn't want to see it taking 12 months to deliver either. I think it could be done. I would want to see it being done earlier in the new budget, if possible, not later. But I do support that with process that, if we can wait a couple of months, get a few months and get it incorporated in the next financial year, it's probably going to be better for process, and then deliver a reasonable outcome.
Thank you. We have a mover and a second of the amendments now on the floor. Any further debate on the amendment? Deputy Mayor.
I just want to say that I kind of support Councillor De Backer's position on this, but I also want to just get this thing dealt with, because it's come back 3 times already. We're leaving a job half finished, we're in danger of, I think, inflaming the situation and really eroding the confidence of a section of our community. And we're probably going to approve maybe even more money when it comes back to us. Who knows what will happen in 12 months' time? We can't predict that. So the only reason that I said no to the amendment was that I think we should just deal with it. Otherwise, it's just going to keep cropping up and taking up our time, and we should learn from this process and move on and aim to do a bit of a better job next time.
Thank you. Any further debate on the amendment? Councillor Pearce?
Oh, sorry.
No? Shortest speech ever.
Yes.
Best speech. That's to be sure. I might just ask a question on the amendment. The other works, the replanting the little microscopic things that were put in that are now missing or dead or whatever, is the intention that gets done in this planting season, or will that wait until after this bit of equipment arrives and be even further months away from making the thing look or fulfilling the original design intent, which is not being fulfilled at the moment? Can I ask it that way, CEO?
Through you, Chair, of the report author. Vincent, good to have you in the room.
To the Mayor, in this instance, we'd actually wait to install the equipment that we're doing earthworks in that area again. We wouldn't want to actually damage the planting. We're going to replant. I suspect we're looking to do the majority of it at the same time, just to ensure that we do it properly. I also probably bring to your attention at this point that if you fund it this financial year, we can order the equipment straight away, but it is actually touch and go if the major equipment is delivered in time to install. There'll be some chance of getting in June, but it's not guaranteed at this point. Playground equipment's in short supply at this point in Australia. There is some Australian-made equipment and some Australian-made components here, but not all components are. We are having probably important.
Oh, thank you. The difference isn't huge. The equipment gets ordered, normally takes 3 months to arrive. It's going to be here in June. We put it in for the next budget. The staff won't order it until the budget's approved in June, which means it won't get here until September. There's not going to be too many kids playing with this thing in winter because it's going to be wet. But I kind of agree with the Deputy Mayor. If the decision is not about the type of equipment, I've heard no one argue that it's a wrong decision, or the amount of money, annoying as it is, I totally agree with Councillor De Backer on that, in terms of that early advice not being appropriate, although I know we're willing staff to tell us some horrible number every time we touch the playground going forward, but nevertheless, if we're committing to spend the money, I'm kind of falling on the side of get it done so the plants can be done and the people who have had high expectations can see something happen there sooner rather than later. If we do, the amendment gets up, it won't be done until probably October, which means it'll interfere with the arrival of spring and people will be grumpy. And I'm not over it, but I am. You know, we should have got this right the first time. It's time to get on with it, I think. So if I need to, there's a step I'd be voting against the amendment.
Am I allowed a question?
Yes. Yes, certainly a question, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes, my question is that even though if this amendment gets up, we have that staff would be directed to follow that, but that could be changed if things, you know, if the sun shines on us and things change. So staff would come back, I assume, but with a report to us that we could actually do part of it or do the whole thing if things changed financially.
Imagine that was a question, CEO.
Yes,
Could you-
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
In the overall scheme, while it's frustrating for council and it's not in a budget of our size, sheep stations, it's annoying. We understand that, but we can find it this year if we need to. We will just make sure that we can find it. So whether the sun shines or not, I think that if council directs that it should be done as soon as practicable, given the delay in getting equipment, some of which may have to come from overseas, we will find the money. Is that clear enough?
So councillor, does that answer your question?
No, I should have made it clearer that if we have this amendment, then does that preclude us from, if circumstances change? Because this is going forward saying that we'll get that additional money with that total and it be captured in the budget 2021, 2022. So is that from, oh, right, okay, I see. So this will be from like the 1st of July,
Correct.
basically, onwards. Or so it's,
Order won't be placed until the 1st of July.
okay, it's all right. I'll draw my question.
That's okay. I think you got an answer eventually.
Yes.
Any
Sorry about
further debate on the amendment? That being the case, I'll now put the amendment to the vote. There being no summing up, all those in favour of the amendment? All those against the amendment? The amendment is carried. And now becomes the motion. Okay, any further debate on the motion? Councillor Pearce.
Yeah, I'll probably just repeat what I said last time in February. I was against the 25,000. As we've already spent 75,000 on it. The main point is we're sort of pandering to 12 people that replied from 173 properties. And even the consensus there was 46% in support and it was 54 not supporting or unsure. So I just don't get it. That we're I don't think the staff done it wrong at all. We're saying, oh, let's throw some more money at it to please 6 people. Just don't get it. Not for it at all.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, I think it's been a vexing situation because I think we just need to hopefully learn from this that I guess that if you want to design a camel, you don't ask the committee. I guess substitute playground, and it comes to us at a workshop, having the staff having done the initial research, but yeah, I think that's where more the sticking point was, that we sort of feel that it really met the needs, regardless, in a sense, the consultation, it still didn't stack up really about having decent equipment there. So anyway, we're reached the point now, so we're almost designing the camel. So just put it, make the council vote. That's called a playground.
It does look a bit camel.
Yes, I could investigate.
Councillor Barnett has the floor.
Yes, I should have investigated putting a camera in. Anyway, enough frivolity. That's it.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, I'm going to take that vote again because an arm halfway up is kind of really hard to count.
It's probably too late, isn't it?
Well, the Act and the regulations state you can't introduce new information in summing up. That's why I rule that way. Summing up is summing up what's previously been said. A question is introducing new information. So that's why I don't allow questions in summing up.
It's not allowed after the mover's reply. So
Not at all. So no,
sorry.
that's just procedural. So I'll take that vote again. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, that's done that one. 10.5 is the next one, the 40k speed limit, additional funding and implementation across council. I would have thought Councillor Groove would come bounding in at this point, but it has not. Item 10.5, the recommendations on page 72, 73. Somebody happy to move it in its current form? Deputy Mayor, just speak to it.
Look, I think that former Deputy Mayor Mark Brew would be a very proud man on this day if he was here. He may be joining us remotely, who knows. The cost of this seems, well, you know, I guess there's a couple of things here. We seem to have underestimated the cost of this significantly, which seems to be something which might be quite difficult, but maybe not. But the overall cost is about $122 a sign, given that we need 500 70 signs. So the cost of doing it is not significant from that perspective. Something that we've pushed for, and it's been on the agenda for quite a while, and we've achieved it. And it had some consistency across the city, which I think is a good thing.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second
Councillor
that.
Barnett, you should speak to it.
Yeah, well, coming from the other side, that has had 40K, I think it's been beneficial, and most, unless you're a speedster that likes to speed, or I better not say anymore. So I just had a taxi years ago when we did all that. I had a taxi driver who was a resident who was not happy at all. So that's why I thought about that. But yeah, I think the consistency for people entering our city, whether it's on business or visitors, so we have that consistency. I think we've been able to do it without a whole lot of closures that another council went and did many years ago. So it's been through we're putting it out for the notifying the changes to this. So I commend it to recommend this.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Backer,
I'd like to move an amendment.
seems to be the night. Okay.
In point 2, approves an additional 35,000 to allow for the manufacturer rollout to be captured in the budget for 2021-22. And allocates the point 3 as well. To change it from the third quarter budget review to the budget for 21 and 22, and I'll speak to it just in a little bit.
So those changes up there, CEO, you're happy that they are clear for you and your staff?
So it should be 2021 to 22 for both.
21, 22. Okay, speaking to your proposed
Yeah,
amendment.
look, I mean, I'm not keen on rewarding poor planning by budget reviews. It'd be great if they had budget variations down, but they were seen to up, and this is actually double. So it's almost like they, allowed for signs on one side of the road. Oh, but geez, we have to do it on the other side of the road as well. I think look, this is such an important thing. And one thing I've just been alerted to is on paragraph 3 of page 72. It says council will also need to consider if they would like to directly inform the community of the speed limit. Depending on the method of engagement, additional funding may be required for this. So it's like almost a half-baked rollout. And I'd say, well, if we're going to do it, we do it well. I want to have a full report that comes to me, showing me where all the signs are in the city, how we're going to consult with our community, because it's such an important thing. And I just don't want A, confusion, or B, us not consulting and giving people the, I guess, time frame to get their head around the education period. So this is another one from infrastructure that's come to us that's a budget review. And look, budget reviews happen, that's fine, but I think it just needs to be come back just with a bit more clarification. And it may be it comes back to us with $55,000. And I'd certainly support that because it's clear what we're actually voting for. That's just my thought. So I would encourage people to put it into the next budget and with the full consultation that comes back with the price tag attached to it.
Thank you. As I've done before, the mover happy to incorporate that change, Deputy Mayor?
No.
No, and it becomes an amendment and moved by Councillor De Backer. We should speak any further to it.
No.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Ripp, you should speak to it.
Yeah, look, I'm really overall happy that I'm happy to hear that DIP have approved, obviously, us or giving us approval to implement the 40-kilometre change in the city. So I guess that's one thing, and I'm encouraged by that. What I am disappointed about is that yeah, we've, I guess, under budgeted by 50%, and you could actually argue we've under budgeted by 75%, depending on what we determine the community consultation to be. Because I would think that something was bigger for this city, considering we supported going out and consulting with the whole community widely about whether they support the 40-kilometre change. Probably the city are going to want to hear very clearly back about the change to give them the appropriate education period, and make them aware and educate them. So then if it comes to fines in the future, people can't say, oh, I didn't know about it. So I would actually want this going out properly to the whole community to be notified. So by me wanting that, I know that it's probably going to cost more than what's budgeted for. So effectively, we could have under budgeted this by 75%. But if this had come to us potentially into a workshop, we could have had these conversations earlier, and it hasn't. So I would need to support, for me, for peace of mind and comfort. I don't want to be here potentially, whether it be 55,000, 60,000, whatever. I don't want to be making these decisions on the fly and on the run. I think it needs to go through to the next budget. I want to see the 40-kilometre change happen. That's not the issue. The issue here is the budgeting of it, and I think it would be fair with process that it gets budgeted. Whether it can be done early again, I stress I don't want to see it done 12 months right to the end of the next budget cycle, but I do think with process that we need to do this in the next budget.
Thank you. Just briefly from the chair, a question. My understanding is we've done all the consultation on this. So all we're talking about is information. Is that correct, CEO?
That's my understanding, Chair. And it's been a very long process up to now. And there's been a great deal of consultation. And if I just may address the budget issue, all it could be in the early days was an estimation.
No. Well, I'm glad you asked, if you could. Yeah, thank you. So I have asked staff as well what we can do for 5,000. They've assured me that there is a newer process that a third party works with Australia Post to get things like postcards out at that sort of price point. I was delighted to hear, yet to be tested by us, but I'm sure that it's workable. And it is an information program. It is not a consultation program. That decision's been made on the basis of previous consultation. In fact, we've had 4 rounds of asking for this in some parts of the city. It is possible, though, by saying that doesn't happen until next year, that the notification could go out in the rates notices, the first rates notice, which goes to every ratepayer, and might save us $5,000. Whereas we don't send a rates notice out in the 4th quarter to everybody because some have paid in advance, so we don't have that opportunity. Some people don't get a rates notice, so you can't slip anything in their non-existent envelope. I'm not going to die in a ditch over whether it gets done this year or next year because it's so close, but just to remind people that if it's in the budget for next year, the staff can't place an order for anything until we approve the budget, presumably in our last meeting in June. So it just delays it by another 3 months, which in this instance, I don't think we should, but I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. So in terms of a split vote, I'll probably end up going with the staff recommendation just to fall on that side of it, just so you know. Any further debate on the amendment? No, that being the case, then no summing up with an amendment. I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? All those against the amendment? Very slow tonight, that are. We'll introduce the other one. The amendment is carried. The amendment is carried. Okay, now it becomes part of the motion. Is there any further debate on the motion? Deputy, well, you've already spoken to the motion because you moved it. If there's no further debate on the motion, Councillor Pitts.
Just quickly, look, I'll support it because obviously we've gone to a lot of trouble with this and got the approval to go ahead with it. But just to be consistent, I will say I voted against it back in January 2020. Not because of the safety and everything else. It's just that the difference between and in fact the consultancy was very close, as we know. We had a deputation against it on that night. So clearly the data shows that the slower you go, the safer it is. My point was back in January that when we come to budget, as we've just done, we're always tossing items out because we can't find the money. And my point was that I didn't want to waste $35,000 on putting new signage up when the law is if you travelling at 50, it's up unless otherwise indicated. So we didn't need the signage. That was the main point. Now it's gone from 35 to 70, so that makes it even a stronger argument. But clearly, like I said, we've voted it in and we've had to go to DIP and get it approved, and that's been done. So be it. I'll support it on that basis.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate?
If we've spoken to the amendment, then you can't
Correct.
speak against that, right?
You seem to have spoken to the motion already.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay, let's go back to Deputy Mayor if you wish to sum up.
I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle here, but my response is the same as before. I think some of these items, we should stop banking them and, logging them and stacking them up for some later date and just get on with some of these types of things. We have been pushing for this for a long time. I think it's a good victory to get it. There's always going to be ins and outs in the budget, and it's something that the team is pretty good at managing quite successfully. I don't see this having a major impact in the overall deliverables that we're expecting. So I'll be not supporting the motion, but I'm not going to die in a ditch over it if it goes the other way as well.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour of the motion? All those against the motion? It is carried. All right. If you're here for that, no.
Councillor Gregson, it's not now.
Councillor Greg. It's his 10-year-old twin's birthday today, so they're having a big night.
What's been taking longer, this motion, or is twins been?
10.7 Devonport Terrace Street Stat Draft Concept Plan Consultation Results. Page 103, 104. Somebody happy to move it in its current form? Deputy Mayor,
Yes, I am.
would you wish to speak to it?
I will briefly, as we say, and I'll try to be brief. This has been on the table for a long time, and whilst not everyone's ever going to be happy with the outcome, I think we've given this a fair crack at getting it right, and it will make a significant difference to that part of our city. And I think this is a really good example of where we're not doing something as a result of a few squeaky wheels or people agitating unnecessarily. This is a part of our city which we all acknowledge is fallen way behind. So I think it's a good statement to everybody that says we will look at all parts of our city and we want to bring everything up to a good standard. It has the potential to be an awesome place to live. It's had a bit of a history of being neglected, but with what we're doing and with the developments going along down there, with the work that's going to happen at the end of Devonport Terrace, I think that's going to continue the reinvigoration of that part of our city, which falls in line with the other work we've done along Churchill Road. And it's great to see that we're spending some money and have taken on board both our feedback and also the community's feedback. They've had plenty of opportunity to be involved. It is disappointing to get to nearly the tail end of this and to have maybe 5 people turn up, 6 people turn up to the community consultation session that was held at Charles Kane Reserve. But I do think that more people, maybe people are over by now and they're just wanting us to get on with it. So as soon as we can get started on it, I think that's going to be a good outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett, happy to second?
Yes, very happy to second. Finally, we've got to this point, which is fantastic. And also they've managed to do it with some funding, which is even more fantastic. I should not say fantastic because that usually means unbelievable. So that was really welcomed. We note that with this, that we still have the other end around the Ovingham section still yet to come. So there, I think we've made sure, that the residents down there understand this, and also had representation about the on page 108. It talks about there was strong feedback in relation to the proposed removal of the Aloe Casuarina tree near Dudley Park Railway Station to improve sight lines. It just says it may be possible to meet the safety concern raised with this tree by trimming the tree and its immediate surrounds. In addition to requesting SAPN to review the street lighting area, it is therefore recommended not to remove this tree. So I hope that that is the case, that will happen in what we're moving, because some of the residents that are mostly concerned are ones that look at it nearly every day from their property and from their front veranda. So I am hoping that that is what will happen. That,
Do you have a question in that regard, councillor?
Yes, I think I'll have a question to say, is it possible to make sure that that Alocatarina tree is not removed?
I think I'll take the question in the absence of the CEO, just refer to the acting director.
Yeah, through there, yes, the intention is to leave the tree in place. We've updated plans to reflect that. The trimming would be quite low. There's basically a branch on the right of the tree which would come off, and there's a secondary tree to the left that would actually trim it through the lower branches just to allow for the light still. And we see no reason to remove the tree this
Right.
and the plans reflect that.
All right,
Thank
then, yes. Well, thank you, and hope to relay that to those residents that were quite concerned about that. So I still note that there was a presentation from some of the bicycle groups. So I'm not quite sure where we're at with a lot of those. Some of them seem to be quite sensible, but I guess that can come at a later time. Sorry, I'm just trying to scan. So we're endorsing it. All right. Okay. Thank you. So I hope that elected members will approve this.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Rip?
Yeah, look, I totally agree with the previous speakers. It needs to get done. Overdue. It's definitely absolutely needed in that part of the city. I'm also really happy that we've made the decision to allocate the 756,479 of that Commonwealth money to it. So that way it's a significant chunk. That way we can get on with it and get it done. I guess, just question to the administration. Obviously, we put forward a maximum cost design, I believe, of 1.282 million. I guess we've allocated the 756 to it. Will we be able to really get a significant, I guess, amount of those works done to really get it going underway with that? Or is the administration proposing, I guess, was the administration proposing the long-term financial plan to bring extra funding forward to deliver the rest of it? Sort of double check what the plan was.
My understanding, I'm happy to be corrected, is that the funding is allocated to this concept plan.
Yes.
With no work around the Ovingham station included and no work on the bike track behind 1838 included. Those are the two sections which we've asked to be added back in should there be sufficient reserved funds. But otherwise, the project is fully funded in this design format. Is that correct? So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just think, yeah, get on with it. Really excited. We'll be really excited to see that bit done. It definitely needs to happen.
Councillor Backer.
Just a question through the chair to the acting director. Just on price tags of things, light poles and stuff. I've enjoyed driving down Prospect Road into North Adelaide and looking at everybody using the beautiful paths with the lights, the pedestrian lights, and it's just amazing how much more it gets used because it feels safe and it feels light. One of the things I didn't see in the proposal, which we had asked for, was pedestrian lighting. I'm wondering how much an equivalent one of those would cost, obviously cost putting the rest of it, to put in between where the station is and say, you know, Charles Kane Reserve or something. But it's a real black spot. So maybe through the chair, we can have a ballpark idea.
So, yeah.
Through you, Chair to the acting director.
Through there.
Sorry.
In the original concept for $1.85 million, we did have lighting in there on those lines. At that point, we did include $30,000 for some basic lighting. some instances along there, it's relatively easy to get power to that lighting. Probably consider it up as the light.
Yeah.
That sort of situation.
Because in my
Thank you.
thinking, sorry, I'd be happy to approve an additional 70,000 to get pedestrian lighting there, because I think that's the real thing we've missed, and I think we want people to be safe and feel it's a place that you can actually use or bicycle or walk or whatever. And I don't think we've got it in there, unless I am mistaken. So
Question, CEO, is there any lighting upgrade included?
pedestrian lighting.
My understanding, not, but acting director, do you want to correct me?
Through the mayor, all lighting is removed as part of reducing the cost.
Except for the
Councillor.
train
Can I
station.
move an amendment at point 5 to reinstate the pedestrian lighting design? Now, this is going to be difficult with the figures. I would say in the order of 70,000. I don't know if that would be, yeah, in the order of $70,000 to improve pedestrian safety.
Can I be so cute from the chair to ask you which budget year you expect to do that in?
Well, this is the thing. I think we've lost a few, so I was going to suggest this year's as a budget variation.
Great review, so might put it in there.
Yeah, third budget review. 20.
CEO, if you could help
2020,
your
21.
secretary with some words to.
Real estate pedestrian lighting design, my only concern, Chair, is what is that? I'm not quite sure what we're referring to in specifics.
Pedestrian, reinstate the pedestrian lighting design.
Just by way of reference, incorporated in earlier concept designs,
Yeah.
would that give
That might
staff
be-
sufficient guidance?
Yeah, that would be more helpful if that's all right. Designs that have already been presented.
Incorporated in earlier
Yeah.
iterations of the design.
To a maximum of 70,000.
And the amenders saying in the order of 70,000, which is, you need something a bit more precise, I presume.
Yes.
Councillor Backer, to a maximum
To
of.
the maximum of $75,000 to improve pedestrian safety.
Okay, in the order of and to a maximum of 75K as a dollar figure.
And can I just get the words as per previous recommendations in terms of capture the third quarter budget review, the words before that and this adjustment be captured? And earlier concept designs.
Taking out in the order of. And so it's just to a maximum of.
See, that's workable from your point of view.
Just take handout. So it's, sorry, Chair, reinstate pedestrian lighting design incorporated in early concept designs to a maximum of $75,000 to improve pedestrians, and this adjustment can capture things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Backer, you happy with those words?
Yep. Could I speak a bit more to it? Or?
You got a minute? Yep.
Yeah, so briefly, I just encourage you to support it because it was a key point of the initial concept, and it's certainly comments that have come back, and I don't see it captured. So yes, if you're right near the station, fantastic, but if you have to park your car near there, or you want to get from point A to point B along Devonport Terrace, and we do want people to use it, I think pedestrian safety is really important. You know, walking alone at night, I think it's really important that we make it safe for our residents. So,
Thank you. I'll ask the mover in a second whether they're happy to incorporate. Deputy Mayor, delicious, isn't it?
Given that I can only say yes or no, I'll say yes.
Magnanimous of you. Councillor Barnett,
Yes.
And 2 yeses, so stick leave the meeting to incorporate. All those in favour? Against, it is thus incorporated. A victory, Councillor De Backer, despite the earlier odds you stacked against yourself, just by way of comment.
You know, it's sharing.
I've heard you speak very clearly on principles before around the use of budgets. So there's a comment from the chair, so I'm amazed how malleable these things are. Is there any further speakers to the motion?
Just a question.
Question? Yeah.
So the 75,000 is just for a design, pedestrian lighting design. It's not actually achieving any lighting. If it's a design, you won't have any lighting. Is that correct?
My understanding is that was to incorporate the changes, but the changes as per the designs that were shown to us
So it
earlier.
actually will be happening.
That's my interpretation.
Yeah.
Let's CEO, is that how you'll interpret?
I'm interpreting this as getting $75,000 worth of lights.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Do you want to strengthen?
Yeah.
that?
And on the back of we're being asked to endorse the concept design tonight.
Yeah.
It's on the same use of language.
Yeah.
Any further debate?
Link, I have spoken to it.
Yes, you have, councillor.
Just more question, if possible, if this could be taken in parts.
Yes, I'm happy to take it in parts. Okay, any further debate? If not, Deputy Mayor, do you wish to sum up?
I will say that I supported the amendment because the lighting was one of the key points that I made when we were discussing this and reviewing the proposed designs. And I think it's, you know, if it was a couple of hedgehogs that we, you know, took out wooden toys or a playing thing or some signage around, you know, speed limits and things like that, I wouldn't be supporting it. But given that I think it's a significant part of activating that area right from the word go, I think it belongs back in there. So that's why I supported the amendment. Apart from that, I don't see any further need to sum up.
Thank you. That concludes debate, and I'll take it in parts. All those in favour of part 1? Against, that is carried unanimously. All those in favour of part 2? That's carried unanimously. All those in favour of part 3? That is carried unanimously. All those in favour of part 4? That is carried unanimously. There's no part 5. We didn't miss anything here, did I, Councillor Rick?
There is part 5. That's amendment.
Oh,
Take note of
5.
that, Alan.
I missed
Note-
that. It's not in
note
front of
that,
me.
please.
Yeah, boys.
You added part 5 to my
That's
notes.
going crazy.
All those in favour of part 5? All those against part 5? That is carried. Okay, thank you. That concludes debate on that item, 10.7. And I take it, CEO, you're going to have it all done by the 30th of June, which is fabulous. Oh, is that a question? It's not a question. I'm merely restating what's in part 2. For your attention and follow-up and management. Very excited to cut the ribbon on the 30th of June at midnight.
To a blaze of lights,
To a blaze of lights, yes. Item 10.8, proposed dog registration fees for 21-22, recommendations on page 150. Someone happy to move it in its current form? Councillor De Backer, wish to speak to it.
No, thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it.
I need to follow the previous speaker. Endorsed it.
Such unity. Do we have any further debate? You don't want to woof at all? That concludes debate. Apart from summing up, Councillor De Backer, did you wish to sum up those 2 excellent speeches?
No, thank you.
That definitely concludes debate. All those in favour? Against, it is carried unanimously. Okay. 10.9, of course, has been withdrawn. Item 11, general business of an urgent nature. Are there any items people consider of an urgent nature? No, we'll move on then to item 12, reports or information. There is only one 12.1.
Oh, God.
12.1, and I'm sorry, I can't ask you to move it on block because I have to withdraw it because I have to make a correction. Given that's the only item, there will be no voting on block. I now turn your attention to the report, and unfortunately, the report was written before the homespun event was postponed to a date in April. So I have to advise you that I didn't attend it because it wasn't on. So if you could just amend the report, Minute Secretary, to delete that item from the activities list under part 1. If someone wishes to move it in its revised form. Councillor, they wish to speak to it? No. Got a seconder? Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
Yes, I think it just highlights that apart from the normal busy activities of the mayor, it's probably been even more busy with the all the Prospect Arts walk and the Prospect Fringe and all those. So it's wonderful to see all those things keeping you busy.
And proud to be. Thank you for pointing that out. Very, very happy days. Any further debate? That concludes debate. Unless Councillor wishes to sum up? No. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Council member reports and briefings. Are there any council member reports or briefings? No. Okay, we move on to motions on notice. Deputy Mayor Larwood has submitted a motion on notice, traffic management, Elizabeth Street, Prospect, pages 162 and 163. Sorry, I didn't get to clarify this with you earlier, Deputy Mayor. In part 1, just before I ask you to formally move it, there is a geographical kind of mystery around what you mean by the western end of Elizabeth Street when you mention Churchill Road, because Elizabeth Street crosses Churchill Road. Can you just clarify? The drawing indicates the intersection of Elizabeth and Churchill. Was that your main area of focus?
Well, no, it's the section of Elizabeth Street between Devonport Terrace and Churchill Road.
Right, okay. Can we just get that clarified in your motion?
So when I said the western end, I meant the western end of the entire length of Elizabeth Street.
Can I advise you to replace the word western end with the word section?
Yes. Like magic. It happens.
Adjacent, and the word towards be adjacent. Just for real clarity for staff, so they're not confused. Instead of western end, the section adjacent Charles Kane Reserve, Bando Yurta and Churchill Road. Okay, thank you. And as mover, you now have the floor. You don't need to read it out. In your hands.
Thank you. So the idea behind this is to, obviously we're looking for some investigation, some consultation, and looking at the feasibility of changing how that street operates. And going back, a number of years, it wouldn't have really carried much traffic. But with the activation that we've seen around Charles Kane Reserve, and in particular the recent, as it says, the establishment of the play space, traffic along there has become, I think, almost on every night of the week and on pretty much Saturdays and Sundays as well. A huge amount of comings and goings along that stretch there, and particularly people parking and a whole bunch of kids jumping out of their cars and running to the playground, and people getting out to go and play sport and to run around the oval or whatever it might be. It just feels like it's getting more and more likely that something is going to happen. There is no reported incidents of injuries. However, just spending a fair bit of time down there, you can just feel that something is going to happen if we don't consider doing something or other. So even though right back at the start it said that section of Elizabeth Street was wide enough to have two-way traffic, it is, but it's pretty tight. It's really tight, and kids getting out the traffic, the roadside of doors are really exposed to cars coming through pretty quickly. So I can see that it feels like it's getting to be more of a dangerous situation. The other thing that happens is that people drive down Elizabeth Street and they want to go down that way, so they want to head north, and they realise they can't do a right-hand turn there, and they do anyway. So we get a lot of people who just drive along that section, which is a one-way going the other way, regardless of what happens, and they take the risk and, you know, get away with it, and that causes issues and concerns and those kind of things like that. So I feel like reconfiguring that street to be one way and considering angled parking would allow for a lot more of a safe environment for kids to be getting out of cars. And given that the side of the road that they would park on would be the northern side adjacent the field or the playground there, they wouldn't have to run across the road like they do currently on Devonport Terrace. So I think this would solve a couple of problems. One would be the aggravation of people breaking the law and going one way down that section of Devonport Terrace, and two, it would really clean up that street. And I'm not saying that there aren't other streets in that section that might need the same you know, consideration, but this is the only one that carries the volume of people coming and going all the time, and a large volume of kids excited to get out and jump on that fantastic playground. That's where the idea came from, and as I have outlined in the motion, it's to consider doing something. We're not actually doing anything at this point in time, not looking for any budget apart from the cost of the investigation, the community consultation. And I'm interested in going forward with that process to see what the community thinks, and then we have a decision to make as to whether we do anything in line with what the community thinks or we don't. So I'd like to commend the motion and looking forward to hearing people's thoughts and discussions on the idea.
Thank you. So moved. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I certainly support that. I mean, I go back to when family played cricket there, so that's going back at least about 25 years, 20 years. And it was a problem even then, because as soon as you have like an avalanche, you know, at a particular time of people and children and whatever, and it's the same, I think, you know, with the other sports, soccer and across there now. And with what we've fantastic additions that we've put there, so I think it's timely to have a proper look at this. It's come up every now and again, and you know, so I think it's timely, particularly with what's happening on the upgrade along Devonport Terrace. Yeah, I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, look, I certainly welcome it, given that, you know, all the changes that are happening down there. I'm just looking at old Google Maps, and I'm just wondering with the viability of parallel parking, if there's actually new infrastructure we've built in that we might not be able to do that. But I suppose the report will investigate that. I'd really welcome the opportunity to actually go to a workshop on the whole Charles Cave precinct, because I know frankly, Bagels, we've looked at, you know, the possibility of doing a parklet. We've got cannoli box there. One of the things that we're talking about with our parking survey and tree planting and greening is actually being able to plant trees in the road proper, and that basically the trees act as tops and tails or parts where cars can drive in, and that might, you know, at the top of Elizabeth Street, sort of change it into a one-way. We can plant a tree on a little protrude roots. Is that right? Yeah, we'll do. So yeah, look, as much as I love reports, sometimes without the workshopping of it, sometimes they can miss our collective thoughts. Not that they're worth much, are they? Yes, of course they are. But it's good to just sort of thrash out some different ideas. So though I will support the motion, I'd also welcome any workshops in and around that whole precinct to contribute to what we can do.
Thank you. Any further debate? There being none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pearce. Just a casual kind of, you know, like end of the night.
It's getting late.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I support it, but we have this broad strategic review in any case, aren't we? So wouldn't it fall under that situation when I mean, we've already had Myrtle, we've had Alpha, but it will come up all over the place, like Councillor Backer said earlier. So absolutely support it, but once again, it's going to fall into that realm of the whole review we're going to be doing.
Is that a question or a statement?
Statement.
Okay. Any further debate? Deputy Mayor, just to sum up.
Thank you. Yeah, I will briefly. So to Councillor Pearce's point, it does form part, it will form part of the overall discussion that we're having, but I think it's clear that there are many streets in our council area where there aren't any issues, but we need to consider how we look at what they currently deal with regards to volumes and parking and those kind of things like that. But as per one of the earlier motions that we voted on, over the fence somewhere, I believe, still part of our council area. We acted on that because of a specific issue. We consulted, we tested the waters on what to do and made a decision. I think it was a good decision. So I think whilst it's great to have a strategy, there are always going to be situations where we actually need to do something. I think this is one of them. So hopefully people will support the motion.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. Questions with notice, there are nil. Confidential items nil. Meeting is closed at 9:55. Sorry if you just lost money on that. I tell you, don't even have a non-monetary gamble on what might happen at these meetings. Good meeting, lots of good